This is Talk Star Wars, the official podcast at talkstarwars.co.uk. Hello everyone, welcome to Talk Star Wars. I'm Mark.
And I'm Stephen, Rob and Paul.
So many men in one handsome package.
I wear many hats.
You do, and they're all too small for you, sir. How are you?
All good. Yeah, all good. You all right?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, I'm good.
Good.
Better than Steve. Stevie is off sick this week. As we'd spoken about previously before recording, he is the most unwell, healthy person we know.
Really is. He needs to eat the odd steak, I think.
Yeah, he needs more animals in his diet.
Because even if it didn't make him feel healthier, it'd make him feel better.
Yeah, it'd make me feel better as well. I wouldn't feel half the guilt I feel when I'm around him munching on some food with a face.
I feel no guilt. It's the easy way around it.
And young Paul is on holiday with his family, so we'll let him off this week. But
yeah, fair enough. We've all done that.
They will return in the future. But this evening you get us. What more do you need? Okay, before we kick things off with episode 83, we want to do a little round of thank yous right at the top here. So we're going to say thank you for Facebook likes this week to Katie Stubbs, who's a long-term listener and TSW VIP, just discovered the Facebook page this evening. So thank you, Katie. And also to Darko Zorchek, who liked the Facebook page earlier in the week. So welcome to the little Facebook clan. You fine people, thank you very much for your support. And we got the briefest of reviews this week.
Yeah, I think I know where that came from.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I think that was somebody on Twitter that was kind enough.
Oh, really?
Because, when I send a message, I've sort of put in all the stuff I do, and they go, oh, cool, I'll go and review it. And they always review Talk Star Wars when that happens.
Oh, well.
Which is, great.
It's probably because we're out there cap in hand begging for reviews on the show. That's what it is.
Well, maybe that's it. Yeah, maybe I just need to be more aggressive with it.
Yeah, a bit more proactive with it.
Yeah. Well, I was going to go for aggressive. That's much more fun.
I prefer proactive, of course. So before we read this very succinct review, don't forget that you can take advantage of our Ron Burgundy policy. That means whatever you write in a 5-star review, we will read verbatim. So if you want to promote something like a podcast or a blog, that's where to do it. There's only one rule, and that is keep it clean because we're a family show.
And plus, iTunes probably won't let it through if you swear.
They really won't.
Barely warned be the.
There are creative ways around these things.
Sure, there are.
I think they're on it.
I wouldn't know any of them.
Of course not.
I actually don't.
This 5-star review comes in from General Hannibal of Robots, which is another super quality name.
Top quality.
Absolutely splendid. And it's entitled Great Show and simply says awesome listen. So thank you very much. Can't say fairer than that. You cannot say fairer than that. I hope you stick around, sir. I hope you enjoy what's coming. That's great. Yeah. If you were beating the bushes and drummed that one up then, Rob, I think that's really cool. So thank you for that.
Quite all right.
All right, let's jump into listener comms. We got a Twitter heavy. We got
a tweety, have we?
We got a tweety. We got a Twitter heavy section. At the
somebody's done a tweety at us.
Listener comms. Send us your questions and comments via Twitter and Facebook, or send us an email or a voicemail. We have one this week to talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com. We'll play your MP3s into the show. Rob, would you like to take this first tweet?
I'd be delighted.
Take it away.
Let's see. Hang on.
I'm sharing the screen, Rob. Just point your eyes forward.
Yeah, I got it. So this is from AI Stanfield, and he writes, I think Luke dropped Rey off to be a good Jedi, in quotes, giving up connections, and seeing her pain is why he says the Jedi must end. Well, that's interesting.
That's a really interesting perspective.
Yeah. So the idea is that he thought that a disconnected Jedi with nobody attached might turn out better, and actually, not the opposite has happened because she still turned out pretty good, but it's not turned out how he planned. So maybe he's thinking like, there is no way I can. I like that actually because it's, it might sort of tie into a series of frustrations of his that he's just not been able to find a way to make the Jedi work.
Yeah.
Sorry. Endor's particularly busy this evening.
Is it Boonta Eve where you are?
I think they've done roadworks on this particular bit of stretch of forest, so everybody's having to be diverted.
They've been laying a blacktop.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, this is an interesting position, or an interesting point of view at least. I like the idea to be a good Jedi, which is the prequel rules, isn't it, about no attachments?
Yeah. So maybe he's kind of going back to that.
I mean, the timeline would require potentially Ben Solo's involvement as well. So even that kind of says, when he recognises the girl, they talk about the girl, and then he recognises Rey later on. Yeah, and that could kind of work, couldn't it? I don't expect it to be the case.
Yeah. But so she's been sent off as like a case study, like a
Yeah.
Well, if it works, and then he's like, "What girl?" He's like, "Not that one. The one he sent off to, Force camp."
Yeah, and seeing her pain is why he says the Jedi must end. That's slightly more tenuous, isn't it?
I could sort of go with it to a degree, but no, I don't know. But I will say, compared to the other theories we talked about why that might be, I prefer the ones we've come up with than that one. For that one, that would just be a bit like, oh, Rey's a bit sad, the Jedi must end. It's like, oh,
yeah,
seems a bit much, Yeah, I don't know if I can. I don't mind. I mean, it's not that I can't swing with it in terms of I can't see it being possible. I just would prefer not.
What if he didn't? Okay, what if? Let's play with it for a minute. You ever got halfway through a sentence and thought, I wish I hadn't started that one up because I know where it's going?
Constantly.
I think Luke dropped Rey off to be a good Jedi. What if it's exactly the opposite and he put Rey on Jakku?
Because she's a bad Jedi.
In the hope that she would...
No force for you.
We've said previously that she potentially could just grow up a normal person and never have any... and not experience the awakening at all.
So he's kind of trying to keep her away from all that.
Yeah, if he knew exactly who she was, exactly what her potential was, and he thought, if I can get her as far away from a civilized system as possible, hide her on this desert planet, perhaps she'll just grow up and die an old lady and never have any issues with the Force whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, it's plausible. I don't know. It's a tough one. That I can swing with, like that sort of, he's like, he wants her to be disconnected, have a normal life. Again, but it all comes back to being a bit pottery, doesn't it?
Been a bit pottery.
Like that sort of, because they sort of send him away to Muggle parents, to Muggle aunts and uncles to make sure to give him a sort of normal upbringing so that it won't. So that he won't be a target, whatever. Instead
of it echoing Potter, what if Luke was trying to recreate his own upbringing? And he thought, if Obi-Wan hadn't come out the desert that day and found me with the Sand People, I might have been home with the droids in time to give them over to the Empire and then gone back to a normal moisture farming life,
Yeah.
So maybe he's thinking, I'll plop her on that planet. She'll live the life I would have lived if Obi-Wan wasn't involved. And if I stay away from her, she'll just live a normal life. That she won't awaken within the Force. She won't experience. She might use her powers a little bit here and there, but not know what she's doing.
Yeah.
And maybe she is literally the last hope to rekindle the Jedi. And he thought, I'll squirrel her away on Jakku, and then the Jedi can die with me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that I could kind of go with actually, because
the bloodline thing rocks it a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. And it rocks it quite a bit.
Yeah, because of the time frame.
Yeah, but I say I don't mind that one actually. The idea of it being a sort of, what if I'd never met him? Kind of, maybe I'd have had a better life. Maybe I should give her a chance at a normal life. Seems only fair, that sort of thing.
The major problem with that is that where Bloodline places Ben and Luke and the school, where that places it on the Star Wars timeline, Rey's already on Jakku.
Yeah.
So if she was the only Jedi that he felt he needed to hide away, well, meanwhile he's got a whole school full of potential Jedi still training. It kind of, once you start tugging at that thread, it opens up a whole bunch. Did he know the school was going to fall? Did he know all those Jedi were going to perish? And then So it's probably, I think it's unlikely, but some of these parts they do kind of make sense when you kick them around. But once you scratch at the surface a little bit, it starts to lose its sheen. But oh, cool question though. I like kicking around these options just to see, even if you can break them. I like kicking them around just to see how robust they are.
Yeah,
that's nice.
There's a little bit of there's bits and pieces of robustness there.
Yeah, certainly, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that, AI Stanfield.
Yes, thanks indeed.
Awesome. I hope you reach out to us again. So the next one's more of a comment from Nick Blazes at nblazes on Twitter, who just reached out. I think we'd had a conversation previously about Rogue One.
We had, because it was me. It might be the one that we had where we said about our favourite film, and I mentioned that Rogue One had been creeping up the list.
Yes, yeah.
I wonder if that might be it. Yeah.
So Nick's saying, well, I'm assuming NCK is for Nick Blazes. It's hard for Rogue One not to be my favourite. He finally watched it, so I'm not sure why it's taken such a long time for him to get around to watching Rogue One, but I'm glad you did, and I'm glad you loved it. Yes, indeed. Well, it's a wonderful, wonderful movie. Yeah, which I like very much. All right, the next tweet we got is a comment from Daniel Thorpe, but I also have a question from him this week. So, why don't you read out the comment and I'll get the question ready? All right. So, Daniel Thorpe, who's at Thorpey8 on Twitter, wrote, definitely recommend Lost Stars, my favourite of the new books, just edges Bloodline in my opinion. Now, I haven't read Lost Stars. I hear it's cracking. Yeah, I'm hearing that a lot lately, so I think that'll probably be the next one that I check out. Yeah, I think I might have to as well, because I haven't had the pleasure, but I have read Bloodline, and she's a great. She's a great. Yeah, Claudia Gray's really gets it. All right, so Daniel's also followed that up this week with a 2-part Twitter question. He says, a couple of questions out of curiosity. 1, any plans for Force Friday? And 2, favourite theme from all the films? Cheers. I think he means pick one theme and not one theme from each film. So let's start. Okay. Any plans for Force Friday, Rob? There's talk among some of the Medway-based VIPs about possibly doing a meetup. Yeah, like a little mini meetup at Toys R Us, and seeing how we go. Yeah, I think. All right, well, that's good to know. So maybe we can make that happen then. Yes, indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So there you go. Yeah, we're going to be going to Toys R Us, and we're all going to fight over the one figure they put out, and that'll be us done. The thing is, I said in the group chat about it that I could actually see myself not buying anything but just enjoying hanging out with people. Yeah, because I could be quite bad for that. It's kind of not necessarily a bad thing. It's just I'm not the one for like lots of impulse buys. No. I tend to be more measured and not irritatingly so to myself, because I tend to go like, oh, but I could have got that and I would have liked it. And then I go, no. Yeah, I'm not sure how much I'm interested in what's coming out. That's the other thing as well, is I don't know what's coming out. I do really want to complete my Black Series collection. I don't imagine for a second there'll be any of those around. I wouldn't have thought so. But I think I'm with you. I'm just going to be there to experience it, I think. And maybe we can do some podcasting while we're there or something. Facebook Live or something. Maybe. It'll be fun. So, Daniel, that's what we're going to do for Force Friday. And favourite theme from the movies, Rob? Oh, it's a tough call. You did a sharp intake of breath, and my effort to avoid stressing myself out is to just go back to the one I always fall back on, which is Binary Sunset. Okay. It's just so... Binary Sunset's great. Yes, such an evocative tune. Oh, what's the name of it? I
can't remember the name of it.
Well, you got the EastEnders tune playing in the background. I don't think it's that, is it?
It's not that. No. That is. Sorry, that will stop in a second.
That will flag up on YouTube.
There we go. Stop now. All right. So I know the tune. That's what's annoying. Oh
yes, yeah, from the Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I like that one too.
The reason is, even though it's not necessarily the most iconic piece, when you ask me on the spot to think of a Star Wars tune, that's the first one that pops into my head every time, without fail. And I can't think of the name of it to save my bloody life.
I could go in and look for the soundtrack. Let's have a look. Let's do this.
I've got the soundtrack in front of me. I just can't work out which bit of it is.
Is it not organised?
Maybe it's just called the Battle of Endor.
It might be.
Yeah.
There's the Return of the Jedi. Yeah, I think it is the Battle of Endor. Is it just 12 tracks, or is that disc 1? That's disc 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it is. I'm going to go with Battle of Endor. That works for me.
Yeah, I think that seems right.
Nicely done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's every time. Excuse me. Every time I'm asked to think of a tune from Star Wars that I like, that is the first one, without fail, that pops into my head.
What was that went past?
That was. I'm not even sure now.
Is it a rebel troop transport?
I don't care anymore. I've lost interest. There we go. That's the rest of it.
Daniel, we've got a convoy going past Rob's place, but Force Friday we're going to go to Toys R Us and meet up with some of the TSW listeners. Probably not buy anything. I love Binary Sunset, and Rob loves that tune that we can't remember the name of from the.
I'm pretty sure it's the Battle of It.
Yeah, that works for me.
Yeah.
So thank you for the Twitter questions this week and comments, and we have a question from Katie. We also got a question from Ads that came through via Twitter as well last week, but this question from Katie came through this evening, so it's not in the show notes. Okay. Hey, Mark and Rob, got a question for this week. With this week being the 9th anniversary of the Clone Wars movie and the introduction of Ahsoka Tano, what is your favourite Ahsoka moment, and would you guys like to see an anthology movie about her? So two-parter there. Let's start with the second part first. An anthology about Ahsoka?
Sure.
Absolutely. And I don't mind where it's set either. Because we know...
No, I'm all right with that, yeah.
Kind of her story has been wrapped up in the Twilight of the Apprentice, isn't it? But in a way.
Yeah.
So we don't know where it's going to go yet, but it could be left there. So I wouldn't be opposed to going back and seeing perhaps... They've never done this, but taking the novel Ahsoka and adapting it.
Yeah, I'd go with that. I was just thinking that might work. The other option I'd go for is where she's been between Clone Wars and Rebels.
Yes.
That would work for me too.
Yeah. And there's only a very little... Have you read Ahsoka?
No.
There's only a tiny... There is a bit of that in there.
Okay.
But there's just one adventure, so there's plenty of room. There's plenty of room for other stuff in there. So, yeah, sure. I'd be totally up for an Ahsoka anthology movie, and I hope that they do it.
Yeah.
All right. What's your favourite Ahsoka moment?
Probably the lightsaber battle when she. Where is it? When she I can't think of the episode, but she turns up. Ezra and Kanan are outnumbered by Inquisitors.
Right.
And she turns up and takes them both on. They're not outnumbered in battle, but there's two of them against two, and she turns up and fights them.
Right.
I can't remember what episode it's in.
It's strange, isn't it? How because my favourite Ahsoka moment is Rebels as well.
Yeah.
And she's had that entire season, that entire series of animated shows and a movie.
Yeah.
And that's her favourite.
Yeah, so she comes in. Oh, there you go. So Kanan and Ezra are transporting a baby.
Oh, yes.
So it's her against the seventh sister and the fifth brother.
Yeah.
That battle, I think, is the right one.
Yeah, very good.
That one's pretty cool.
For me, it's hard to beat her facing off against Vader. And
that's pretty cool too.
When the mask Vader, it's not really a Vader moment. It is definitely Ahsoka's moment because of the reveal there with the Vader mask opening up and Matt Lanter's voice. And that moment between former master and apprentice connecting through that monster that is Darth Vader, I think is some really powerful stuff. Not just the lightsaber duel, not just all of the action and things like that, but just that moment where those two characters reconnect after what has been years, and she's a grown woman now, and they're very much on opposite sides of galactic events, and that's pretty powerful stuff, and that's in the twilight of the apprentice. So that would be my pick. Be absolutely up for an anthology movie. Yes, please, indeed.
Oh yeah, to happily watch that.
Nice one. Okay, thank you, Katie.
Very happily.
Thank you very, very much. Yeah, thank you to everyone that contacted us on Twitter this week. That's awesome. Sorry if they've mounted up over the past 10 days or so. All right, let's move on to ads. Do you want to take ads' question, mate? All
right. So, ad writes, hey, gang, so Darth Maul kills Obi-Wan rather than Qui-Gon at the end of The Phantom Menace. How does that all play out? Enjoy. Ads.
Wow.
Okay. That's going to be a tough one.
Yes.
Do you know, I have a thought on this.
Go on, then.
I'm going to go on my reflect on this one. Qui-Gon tries to talk him down first, as in tries to sort of convince him that it's not worth fighting and all that stuff. And we're not so we're not so different, you and I. Stuff like that. Maul's having none of it, so he ends up having to kill him.
Yes.
So I'd still say, Qui-Gon still very much wins that battle.
Maul would never put
anything.
He'd never put a Jedi in a position where the Jedi would let him go, would he?
No,
it would be to the death for Maul. Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Qui-Gon would try and reason him out of a fight. Maul would be having none of it, and then that would end up in him dispatching Maul. But it would take, the battle would be slightly longer because there'd be that sort of back and forth.
Yeah, more of a game of chess than the heavyweight face-off that we got between Obi-Wan and Maul.
I'll go with that.
Obi-Wan came out of that gate like a boxer, didn't he?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
one of my favourite moments. I love what George manages to do in these films is he manages to sort of punctuate the rapid action.
Yeah,
with these moments of still, and that's never more clear than Qui-Gon sort of meditating as Maul is pacing up and down like a tiger. And then when that gate opens and Obi-Wan's trapped, he can't quite reach. He's forgotten how to do the speed run that they did earlier in the film. He's forgotten that by this point, but
apparently so. Yeah,
so he's trapped behind the laser gate, and then when Maul has taken down Qui-Gon. Yeah, Obi-Wan is sort of bouncing on tiptoe, like a prize fighter, sort of geeing himself up. I love that. That's why I think that fight is so aggressive because it's fueled by some of the anger and frustration Obi-Wan felt. So I don't think Qui-Gon would have felt that.
No,
even if Obi-Wan had been taken down, I don't think he would have allowed himself to lose control and given over to that. So I think you're right. I think the fight between Maul and Qui-Gon would have been more like a chess match.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether Maul had the skills necessary to step down a gear like that and meet Qui-Gon on those terms.
Yeah. So it'll be slower and more drawn out, but I also think it would actually be harder for Maul at that point because Qui-Gon would sort of, rather than do what Obi-Wan did, which is get emotional kind of suddenly, Qui-Gon would be the complete opposite. He would go, if anything, I think he'd probably go more zen and try and sort of refocus himself completely.
Yeah.
In which case he would be more difficult to beat because he's not, emotionally all over the place.
Yeah, which we rarely see in Star Wars. We rarely see people keep their cool.
Yeah,
in these moments. I mean, we saw Rey kind of do a little bit of it at the end of Force Awakens, where she kind of calmed herself, slowed herself down.
Yeah,
quite insightful. What about long term?
Long term, I think. Well, that's the tricky thing, isn't it? Because you almost feel like Qui-Gon would have been a more successful teacher of Anakin than Obi-Wan would.
Mm-hmm.
So that raises all sorts of interesting questions. Like, does Anakin, if he does turn to Vader, does he turn to Vader at all? If he does it take longer? Is it harder for Palpatine to kind of countenance that, or does the sort of the turn of the events in the war still kind of let him work things into place? It's interesting.
Yeah, and would those events? I mean, with Obi-Wan's death, that's the first domino that falls, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the first thing that it reframes is Anakin's insecurity going into his Padawan status.
Mm-hmm.
Because when young Anakin takes that step forward and he's on the podium at the end with the short haircut and the little Jedi robes, he's not sure if he was ever really wanted. The person that brought him out of slavery, the person that promised him all these things was dead. And then suddenly you had the Jedi Council saying, no, we don't want you to train him. And Obi-Wan saying, I should train him. Obi-Wan was never really interested until Qui-Gon made him promise.
It seems only fair.
That kid went into that training thinking he wasn't wanted. He's very insecure about himself. Now Qui-Gon would have supported that young lad into his Padawan status, and I think that any of those insecurities that Anakin took with him, I don't think he would have had Qui-Gon been his master. So I don't think he'd have felt insecure, and I think Qui-Gon would have acted as a buffer between the Council and Anakin, and he would never have picked up on Yoda's doubts or Mace's doubts. So he would have started off on a much more solid ground than Anakin actually did.
Yeah. So you think maybe even if he turns to Vader, it's not so quick, and
it may not have happened at all. And I know that's a really bold thing to say, but the other
I'm kind of with you on that one.
The other part that contributed to Anakin's fall was Palpatine's success with the plot at large. And if Qui-Gon was still around and he ran into Dooku, I think that the negotiations on Geonosis would have gone very differently.
Yeah.
Where Dooku was trying to trick Obi-Wan when he captured him. I don't think that would have happened, because you got Dooku and Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon was his student. He understands that man. I don't think anything would have gone the same way in that respect. I think Qui-Gon would have seen Dooku's moves before they happened. He would have read the guy's gambit a little bit clearer than Obi-Wan did. And maybe then the Separatists, that whole scenario doesn't play out the way it should have.
Yeah.
And, are we going back far enough that Sifo DS may not have even happened?
I don't know, to be honest. I'm not fantastically well versed in Cypher DS in terms of the timeline.
But you think you plop Qui-Gon on Kamino, how much more insightful is he going to be? And being in touch with the Living Force the way he was, would he have been able to read them a little bit more, read the deception at play a little bit more effectively than Obi-Wan?
Maybe, yeah.
See, I don't, the first domino to fall is Anakin, Obi-Wan dying. Anakin goes into his apprenticeship much more confident, much more stable. And then if you replace Obi-Wan every step of the way with Qui-Gon, I just think Qui-Gon's a more effective Jedi.
Yeah.
At every step. Mm-hmm. And perhaps none of those events happen. You may never have seen Vader.
Yeah, maybe.
Certainly when it comes to Anakin's, when it comes to Shmi and his mother.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan's always about, you can't. You're having bad dreams about your mum. You got to let that stuff go. I think
Get over it, mate.
I think Qui-Gon would have been a little bit more receptive to Anakin's plight because he met Shmi. He understood the situation. He understood the relationship between the two of them, and maybe he would have had more to say.
Yeah,
to comfort and advise Anakin than the Jedi way is. You just shouldn't be thinking those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mate, it's entirely possible. Yeah, because Obi-Wan's completely disconnected from all that stuff because he didn't even set foot on Tatooine.
Yeah,
yeah, interesting.
Well, he was on Tatooine, but he didn't get 5 minutes away from the ship, did he? He was in there working on the hyperdrive all the time. So he never
that's what I mean. I don't think he set foot on the planet's surface.
He didn't get to go and meet Shmi or see Watto or Anakin. The first thing when he met Anakin was. Oh no! The first reference to Anakin was not another pathetic life form. He was very dismissive, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
he's been self-deprecating, so I think that's okay.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think that's. I don't think it's. Obviously it's like a little bit passive aggressive, but you can tell he's also like we're pathetic life forms too.
Right.
Like,
okay.
And probably Jar
Jar.
Jar.
Okay. So yeah, that's the way I always read it. That he might as well be pointing at Jar Jar when he says it, but it could be like is another pathetic life form joining our caravan of little pathetic life forms. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
How big will he let this circus get, Master?
It needs 3 rings. Okay. Ads, I'm going to be bold. And I don't know, Rob, are you going to be as bold as I am and say that
I'm with you.
Vader never happens?
Yeah, I'm with you.
If Qui-Gon lives.
At the very least, we can walk it back a touch and say the plan changes completely.
Yeah, big time.
That works.
Big time, I think.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks for that, Ads. Sorry it took us a week to get to it, but the board was loaded last week. Okay, so we've got a voicemail this week from the wonderful Rob Cast.
I like him.
Yeah, I've got a lot of time for Mr. Cast. He is a lovely, lovely man.
He is. He's Canadian, so there's that.
Well, there is that, yeah.
It's part of the job, isn't it? It's not a citizenship thing.
Yeah, they do get kicked out if they're not nice.
Oh, okay.
They have to go and live in America. Didn't say that.
That explains Norm Macdonald.
I didn't say that. Yeah. All right. Here's Rob's voicemail.
Hey guys, Rob from the TSW Roundtable and that other show, that TSW. I want to say comics. Yeah, comics. Anyway, I have a quick Rey theory. I just want to throw out there. Do you think it's possible she has a connection to the Skywalker blue lightsaber because she's related to somebody that was slaughtered by that said lightsaber after Order 66? Let's see, a possible a relation to one of the younglings that were slaughtered, or possibly a great niece of one of the Jedi that were slaughtered after Order 66 was put into effect. Anyway, Whiteley, let me know what you think, and I hope you are all doing well, and we will see you on the next roundtable. Later.
Nice one. Thank you, Rob. Interesting.
It is. I have one question.
Mm-hmm.
How do the genetics get passed down?
Yes.
I like it. I really like it. It's like it's like it haunts it almost.
Yeah.
That's like they've been sort of touched by its power. Thus it's kind of scarred them, and thus they're sort of, imprinted their own kind of bloodline on it. Where I'm not so sure how it works is, like I say, how does the bloodline get transferred down when presumably the person who is responsible for it
is dead,
gets killed in Order 66?
Yeah. Yeah, there is that. It could be, I guess it could be a survivor who, after the purge, was thought to be dead. Well,
right.
It was the start of the purge in Revenge of the Sith, I guess, wasn't it? When Anakin went into the temple with the blue blade and he was slaughtering people. He was Vader at that point, so it was the start of the purge, Order 66. So I guess if somebody they thought was dead actually survived,
okay,
and went on to live a life like a Jedi in hiding, had a family potentially,
right?
I guess that could
it's plausible.
Start a bloodline.
The only problem I have with that is the same problem I have with any surviving Jedi, is the more that they do that stuff, the less effective Order 66 becomes.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't mind it being missing the odd one here and there, like Kanan and people like that. But if it's just, oh no, it's only about 20, they only managed to get about 20, the rest survived.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, we started with knowing 2.
Yeah.
And then obviously there are the kids, they're kind of survivors.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the one that Yoda referred to, which we all accept as being Leia, but I think it was most likely not the case when Yoda used that line, the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get Kanan, Ezra. Mm-hmm. You got Ahsokas. There may be other Ahsokas, and by that I mean people who left the Order prior to the fall.
Yeah.
So there could be others out there, but and then you got the Kirikin Falar from the comic books, the guy that's on his doing his Barish vow during the Purge.
Right.
So there could be other examples of that. So
yeah, the only thing with that is once Revenge of the Sith finishes, that lightsaber sits in Obi-Wan's shed for 20 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's one of those ones that you can't quite connect it up.
It's very difficult to make it work, isn't it?
Yeah.
You do have to make some exceptions, but I definitely part of Rob's question is Rey connected to that lightsaber? Hell yes. Just not in a way that we would think.
Yeah.
In terms of being a descendant of somebody slaughtered by it, but certainly I think she's connected to that crystal. I think the crystal, because this is something that we've yet to really explore in Star Wars, and I guess this is the only time we'll ever be able to explore it, is if a crystal calls out to a Padawan and then they're paired for life, what happens when the Padawan dies? What happens to that crystal?
It can either retire or
remarry.
Get remarried. like a detective. They just give it a new partner.
Yeah.
So I'm getting too old for this.
Yeah.
I'm retired 3 days from retirement.
But in a way, right, does it look for a new partner? Does it start calling
Maybe.
out? I think that's what that was in Force Awakens.
Okay.
I think that saber sat, and the crystal might as well have been back in the mines of Ilum or wherever Anakin got his crystal. Mm-hmm. It could have just been sitting there waiting until it felt the presence of somebody worthy or capable of managing it, and then called to her. And that's what that's about. Now, if that had been a virgin crystal in a mine, it may not have had anything to communicate but the crystal song. We hear that the song calls to the Padawan, and that's what they hear, that connection between the two. Mm-hmm. With Rey, it's less a song, more of an absolute nightmare of this crystal saying, look, all of this has happened, but I really want to get out there and do some stuff again. Yeah. And she saw everything.
Here's a thought, right? Have we been told explicitly rather, that the lightsaber has gone straight from Bespin to Mars?
No.
Okay.
It's a story for another time.
Yes.
But
it is.
There's a lot. I know we've kind of touched on this before, but it is something that's very difficult to get around. It with the visions that Rey's having, past, present, and future. Mm-hmm. It seems to imply that weapon may have been with Luke.
Yeah.
At the temple.
Maybe
because of the action with the Knights of Ren in the rain on that planet.
So maybe it's not so much that it was used to kill somebody in Order 66, but it was used to kill somebody at the Jedi Temple.
Possibly.
For example.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I know initially there was a plan to have some of the story about the path of the crystal be something. There is an equivalent story somewhere. I don't know if it's Lord of the Rings or whether I'm thinking of Harry Potter, but the path that crystal or that lightsaber took left a trail of devastation, and people couldn't wait to get rid of it. I'm not touching this anymore. And it's like a Deathly Hallow in Harry Potter. Just get that thing away from me. Where someone picks it up, turns it on, and then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
Like they cut an arm off or something.
Yeah.
So that was initially planned, but I think that we might find out that when Rey holds that out to Luke, and this is a fresh thought, but if Rey holds that out to Luke at the end of The Force Awakens, that might be the second time that saber's returned to him.
Yeah, maybe.
And maybe he gave it to Maz. It made its way back to him, however.
Maybe he gave it to Ben.
Well,
then it's found its way
Ben wants
back
it,
to Mars. Right? Yeah, he wants it back. But maybe it got taken from him, or he tried to get it when they took the temple apart. So maybe that was why he was there.
Remember that image of the Knights of Ren? If it wasn't cropped in the film, you'd see Luke's Jedi lightsaber. Mm-hmm. Because that's something that Kylo was holding. Yeah.
So it's like, this is not the one I want. Where is it?
No. And
because he wants the one that Vader held.
I do think this is quite significant. I think that the ragged nature of Kylo's weapon.
Yeah.
I completely think now that that's because he's got a crystal in there that he's bled.
Yeah.
And went too far and destroyed it. Now, okay. I still think that Delilah S. Dawson's book, Perfect Weapon, has Vader's lightsaber at the heart of the story.
Right.
And I think that Kylo wants that. And if he can't get that, the Skywalker lightsaber will do. I think he wants his grandfather's crystal.
Sith lightsaber.
He wants that at the heart of his lightsaber. Which doesn't really gel with some of the stuff we're learning in the comic books about how you have to defeat the previous owner as a Sith Lord and bleed their crystal as a final sort of insult.
Yeah.
Which is why I think that he took Luke's green lightsaber, bled the crystal, defeated Luke, because clearly that's the only way this can be read, right? Whether Luke retreated from fighting his nephew and went into hiding, whatever. He beat Luke essentially.
He's been bested either way, hasn't he?
Yeah. He bled the green crystal, went too far and broke it. I think Luke has got Vader's crystal, the red one, around his neck in this film.
Right.
Because we've heard that he wears a red crystal set in a...
Well, actually, some of the toy stuff have displayed the crystal around his neck as well.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, that's very interesting. I haven't seen that.
I have to find you one.
So there's definitely a red crystal in Luke's possession. Now, I did think maybe because the cracked crystal at the heart of Kylo's weapon, that might have been the shard of crystal that came out that Luke kept around his neck as a reminder that if you take your eye off the ball, this sort of stuff happens.
Okay.
But equally, I think it could be what's left of Vader's lightsaber.
Uh-huh.
And Kylo wants that to put at the heart of his lightsaber, or he wants to secure that Skywalker lightsaber, the blue crystal, and bleed that one. And this time I think he wants to do it right and not damage it so that he has the proper lightsaber.
Okay.
So I think it's significant. And I think the lightsaber's calling out to Rey.
Yeah.
Instead of calling out to Ben, it's found someone worthy, calling out to Rey. That's the connection. Not necessarily a connection with someone that was slaughtered.
Yeah. Do you know what's popped in my head?
What's that, mate?
The idea that the crystal, this is a bit of a silly one because it's a bit over the top, but the idea that the crystal's almost hiding from Ben because it's fears being bled.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's silly at all, because I had a similar kind of idea when we were just talking about that. I think that could be, and also like it's looking for a Jedi, almost to redeem itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that might, we might want to file that in the silly box with hiding from Ben. But I think that remember Ryan said this is going to be weird. It's going to be a little bit not what you're expecting.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that crystal might dread doing more damage, because that crystal slaughtered tons of people, including a ton of younglings, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's probably thinking, I've done enough damage. I need to find a worthy Jedi so that I can make amends, if you like, and try and avoid the grasp of Ben Solo. But I think the crystals are going to come, I think they're going to be really important around the character of Kylo and what his designs are for completing his transition to Sith.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
All right.
I need to see these toy images, I think.
Let me find you. I'm sure Mark put one in the Toy Box group. me see if I can find it. Do you carry on with your...
Yep. Okay. Well, Rob, thank you very much for your voicemail. I think we've, as we all want to do, wandered off the beaten path there. I think we both find it quite unlikely that Rey will be a descendant of somebody that had come into contact with the Skywalker lightsaber, but we do think that she is connected to that lightsaber in some way, most likely through the crystal and it calling out for another user, the way it would have done initially with Anakin, is doing again now with Rey. All right, shall I go on to Ross's question while you look for images?
Yes.
Okay. So this is from Ross Williamson, who says, "Greetings, guys. I have a question, but first I just need to point out how much richer my Star Wars life has become since recently joining the VIP program."
Oh.
That's really sweet, isn't it? The bonus content, the discussion and the banter are worth the small contribution alone, but throw in a daily podcast too, and it really is the best few quid I've ever spent. And I'm a Scotsman, usually tighter than a badger's backside. An unusual frame of reference. Thank you, Ross. That's very, very kind of you. And the group is a lot richer for having you in it. That must be said. Thank you very much. So his question: I've just finished listening to this week's pod. As a continuation of your discussion around Disney looking to set up their own subscription-based network, I reckon the only way they'll pull in enough subscribers to compete with the plethora of other paid options is to make it the home of a Star Wars live-action TV show. If they were to go down this route, which era and storylines do you think would be best suited to this type of production? I reckon it's a great opportunity to bring the old Republic stuff back into canon, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Much love, Ross. So if Disney were to take the plunge into subscription and put a live-action TV show on there, Rob, what would you like it to be?
I'd be good with the Old Republic. Certainly that era. I'd like the Darth Bane era. I've already professed my love for that series a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a good one to lead with. Would be a sort of, because that's in the Old Republic era. And that's the setting up of the Rule of Two. So it's tied into existing saga stuff. And they could, to be honest, they could just adapt the books and I'm good.
Yeah.
Really, really be happy with that.
That would give them the opportunity to start doing slight retcons as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, plus also, it's not just about lightsaber battles and stuff, although there's a lot of those and they're awesome. There's also a lot of subterfuge and sort of stealth and kind of power plays, and it's not just about, he doesn't just go around slashing all the Sith to bits. He's also trying to maneuver them into positions where he can mess them up and things like that.
So a little bit,
and he doesn't have to do anything, that sort of thing.
It's a little bit like Palpatine with some of his string pulling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he puts people into positions where he knows that they won't come out of it alive, that sort of thing. So he tricks them into killing themselves as much as he's actually slashing people up.
Lovely bloke.
I can't find this toy, so
okay,
I'm just going to have to go without.
Yeah, not to worry. I'm sure it'll pop up at some point.
It might have been a Photoshop, to be fair. People are canny like that.
Oh, canny wee buggers.
Yeah. Aye.
In terms of live action shows, I would not mind if they told the stories between Jedi and The Force Awakens.
Okay.
And it would be kind of interesting, I guess, because of the limitations that brings with it, to tell the story from the point of view of somebody else in the rebellion.
Yeah.
So you still have references to Luke, Leia, Han, and some of those bits and pieces. And you could bring the droids in, like these things I want to do. You bring the droids in from time to time. But tell the stories of the New Republic and rebuilding things after the war, or maybe chasing down and mopping up the remainder of the Empire. You could do something in that era that treats. We're hearing some of these books, these new Journey to the Last Jedi books that are coming out are going to be telling stories that treat the characters a little bit like myth. So if you want to put together a new crew of characters, a little bit like the characters of the crew of the Ghost in Rebels.
Yeah.
Plop them all together in a post-Jedi era. They could talk about some of the stories about Han and Leia and Luke as if they're mythic almost already. Or you could see, recast, or even use Billy Lord as Leia in that period of time. Just use whatever to make her look a little bit more like young Carrie Fisher, and show Leia involved in the political rebuilding of the Republic and Coruscant and things like that.
Yeah.
I'd be very interested in that. Or 1313. This is something that itself has taken on some mythic status, isn't it?
That's true. Yeah, I'd be happy with that too. That one, the only thing about that one is I think people would want Jedi.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd get. I don't think people would be happy with a live action Star Wars unless there was some Force use in it. Because it's sort of, if you think about it, it's almost a unique selling point, isn't it?
It is kind of, and I'm hoping that Han Solo will be the first step towards a Star Wars without,
making it less
Jedi
essential
presence and without the igniting of a lightsaber,
and
that will really make that will take a huge leap forward. We said last year, didn't we, with Rogue One, it's like half a step away from Star Wars. Han Solo needs to be a full step away from Star Wars. Yeah. And then the next projects can start to take huge leaps ahead and do things that work with, if you're just seeing bounty hunters with blasters, like the Cad Banes and the Hondo and Arcas of it all, if you just have those characters, you don't need lightsabers, because those characters show up and they bring so much more to the table, don't they? Than just a cool laser sword and a choreographed fight. So we do need Star Wars that can stand apart from that, I think, because like you said, not 5 minutes ago, the more Jedi they throw in, the more they're watering down Order 66 and the impact of the Purge. Yeah. If you keep pulling Jedi out, and that was my first criticism of Rebels when Rebels started. Oh, there was another goatee bearded Jedi just waiting in the wings. I didn't understand at the time how cool Kanan and Ezra and Ahsoka were going to turn out to be on that show, but it does make you wonder, when do you set the Jedi down and just say, well, they've had their place in this franchise, they've had their place, they've done their duty, now let's try and make Star Wars something more than just laser swords. Yeah, make it something more, put more substance in there that's not swinging laser swords. There's tons of other stuff, and I mean, if we were to see 1313 and you were to get all the scallywags, the bounty hunters, and everything, the ne'er-do-wells, you've got all the other elements. You've got the huts. You can bring the huts in. You got all the what's the bar they go to? The Outlander. In the lower levels of Coruscant, where you go and there's the bet-in, and you get all the droids, and you get the creatures, and you get the blasters, and you get all that other stuff going on. You don't necessarily just need Jedi Knights. But you could have stormtroopers, you can have that, you can have the Imperial presence in 1313, can't you? Yeah. Which is something I think, if you take a step away from Star Wars by dropping lightsabers, the next logical step is to drop the Empire as well. But maybe you can't do both at the same time. Yeah, maybe. But that would be, I really am chomping at the bit for some post-Jedi storytelling, personally, but I would take 1313 quite happily. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say I'm on board with that. That's all good. Okay, cool. So Old Republic and or 1313 and or something after Return of the Jedi. We'll be happy, I think, whatever they give us, won't we? Yeah. And for sure. Also on another animated show as well, please. And thank you. Cheers, Ross. Thank you very much. And thanks for your very kind words, sir. Thanks very much indeed. Okay, Rob, do you want to take Jared's question? I will happily do so. So Jared writes, hi, gents. If you could choose any character, fictional, non-fictional, superhero, public figure, cartoon, etc., to insert directly into the Star Wars universe, who would it be? For example, I would love to see the late great wrestler Andre the Giant make his mark on the galaxy.
He could be a great sidekick to a struggling smuggler, brute muscle for the Empire, or perhaps the Grand Master of all porgs from which Chewie must gain trust. Looking forward to your thoughts. In service of the Rob Public, Jared. So he wants us to choose a character, fictional or non-fictional, to add to Star Wars canon.
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yes.
How can we loophole this in some way?
In what way would you want to?
Or bring a fictional character from non-canon Star Wars into canon?
Oh, right. Yeah, I mean, it's fiction. It's not Star Wars canon, so technically it counts, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we could do something like that. I'm just trying to think who I would pick. There was some. Who was that? Was it Jackson, the rabbit? No, let's not do that. Let's not. From the comic books. Let's not.
But I'll tell you what, just to make people's eyes twitch, I'll bring Bucky O'Hare in from the 90s cartoon.
All right, I'm gonna go way off book. I'm gonna go really, really wide with this one.
All right.
It's going to be a fictional character. I'm bringing it to Star Wars. I'm going to bring the bride from Kill Bill.
Oh, okay.
Into Star Wars as a Jedi.
Wow. All right.
Replace that sword with a lightsaber.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it makes sense, right? Because otherwise she's not going to be much use after about 2 minutes. Let me think. Man, there's a lot to choose from.
There is. It's fun to go outside the box. Really, really far outside the box.
Man.
While you're thinking, I'm going to do
from any sort of literature at all.
Yeah, anything.
Yeah.
I'm going to choose the two droids. I'm going to go again because obviously we're two hosts now.
Yeah. You can go. You can go ahead. That's fine.
I think they're called Vince and Bob. They're the droids from Disney's The Black Hole.
Right.
I'm going to bring them in to Star Wars.
Okay.
Wholesale as well. I'm not going to make any changes. Just one pristine droid and one really battered droid going around in a twosome. Awesome.
I'm gonna use the loophole, and I'm gonna bring in one of the non-canon characters into canon. I'm gonna go with a character called, I think it's just called Wraith.
Right.
And he's a Defil, I think it is. So he's in the Thrawn trilogy, the original Thrawn trilogy, and he's the character that can basically just become he's basically a shadow.
Okay.
He just because he's awesome.
Okay.
I'd go for that, something like that. But I'm really trying to think of something from other, because you don't need a Sherlock Holmes because there's no detective work going on, or maybe there is, but you don't see it in Star Wars, and you don't need anything like that. Tell you what, I got one. So I'd bring in Dr. Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
As a Sith acolyte trying to bring back the dead using parts.
Nice.
Using different living parts, preserved parts from fallen Sith.
That works so well.
That would be awesome.
Good, cool. I was going to say some of the Universal monster stuff has been tackled, isn't it, in Star Wars? Because Vader himself is kind of like a Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah. Plus, they did the Legends. They had that. Is it Red Harvest? And there was another book.
Yeah. That's horror, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that was zombie horror. And it was pretty good as well, as I recall.
Oh, one more.
Red Harvest was the Sith one. What was the ship?
Red Harvest, I think, is inaudible.
It is, yeah. Mark, I think Jonathan Davis reads it. I'm not sure.
Oh, right. Oh, that'll be good then.
Yeah, he's really good for the dark side stuff. Star Wars Red Harvest. And there's another one.
Do you remember that scene?
Death Troopers.
Oh,
that's
yes.
The other one.
Yeah.
Yes, the one with the one where Han and Chewie just turn up because reasons.
Do you remember that scene we spoke about in the Luke Skywalker book, which was a little bit like Predator?
Yes.
That bring the Predator alien in that
sort of environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
Awesome. Oh, that was fun. That was a good question.
Oh, that is fun. I need to have I need to come up with more of these.
Mm.
Oh man, this is too much.
That might make for a good think piece on the site. Actually,
maybe.
What would those characters if you plot those characters in
like a video list?
Yeah, like K9 from Doctor Who as a droid in Star Wars. That would be kind of good as well, especially if you put him on Tatooine.
Stick a bin on a gonk,
or on a pork.
Or just stick a couple of mouse droids together. Just decide which one's the head.
I'm going to bring in that. Do you remember in the old Bugs Bunny cartoons, he had that huge orange beast thing that used to wear like a pair of Converse. I'm going to bring him in and set him loose on Endor to eat Ewoks.
Oh, his name's Gossamer, apparently.
That's disturbing.
Yeah, he's odd.
He is very odd.
Yeah.
A rather quick Googling there, Rob. Well played.
I just searched Bugs Bunny Red Monster.
Yeah.
And he was first result, funnily enough.
And there you go. He's awesome.
What are the odds?
Jared, that was a first-class question. I really did enjoy that. When you go outside your comfort zone with this thing.
Jared, I apologise that I can't come up with better ones than I've got, but I want to give this so much more time than we are, but I just can't think. My brain is just overwhelmed with choice.
There'd be a great top 5 standing by. Five fictional characters that would do well in Star Wars.
That would fit.
The Bride, number 1. Jared, that is first class. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great.
This next question is from Randomitable, but Spellcheck has opted to call him Rondomitable, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Would you like to take that one, Rob?
Yeah, sure. So Rondomitable, as Kyle would no doubt pronounce it. Hashtag shots fired. Pew pew. Morning, gents. Unstructured musing of the day. What if The Last Jedi is plural because Snoke has tracked down the likes of Kanan, Ahsoka, and the other survivors of Order 66 and goes after them? I know this is a bit out there because the Episode 7 crawl stated Luke is the Last Jedi. If this has already been covered and or is clearly ludicrous, then I claim hallucinations associated with running 5K yesterday on the Great Lines. Mark, obviously, the dog turd fumes were too much. Okay.
That was directed at us, I think, because this was shared with Kyle and myself in a group on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And obviously the local reference to the Great Lines being a vast open space of grass where dogs frequent it in a squatting fashion.
And they mess frequently. Yes.
They do. They squat and they tremble.
Yes.
I like that. So the breakdown.
I think something must have been. It must be something. Oh, I see what you mean. I thought it was plural. Didn't they establish that from the translations in the international markets? It was Les Derniers Jedi rather than
exactly. They did in the overseas markets.
Yeah,
it was almost to a number plural, and then Ryan Johnson said, "No, it's singular. It's Luke." So,
okay.
But that's then at odds with the marketing, right?
Yes.
So I don't really know.
Mm-hmm. That's odd.
But I love this suggestion.
Yeah, that is good.
And I like the idea that you can look at this from two ways, can't you? You can look at it as Snoke is tracking down the survivors of the Purge.
Yeah.
And slaughtering them so that he can remain in control unchallenged.
Yeah.
Which might set up fates for the characters that we know and love, such as Kanan, Ezra, and Ahsoka, and so on. Or it could be that Luke is looking for the last of the Jedi because his school's fallen. Now he knows there are survivors out there. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're all doing this vow thing, and he wants to go find them and bring them together. And he's putting together like an A-team, of Super Jedi. Which now I've said that, I want to see that more than anything.
Yes, indeed.
I want Luke to go looking for the last of the Jedi to put them to bring them together in a super group. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine that? Kanan.
Yeah.
Where would that put? Kanan would be the oldest. Mm-hmm. Luke and Ezra would be about the same age. Well, Kanan and Ahsoka would be oldest, but Ahsoka being an alien, so that she may not age. Doesn't have to age the same way, does she? So
no, indeed, yeah.
How awesome would that be with Rey in there as well?
Mm-hmm.
Super group of Jedi survivors. Yes, please.
Yes, indeed. the J team.
Do you think that's likely? The J team.
No, I don't think it is. I think it's going to be very much about Luke and Rey.
Yeah.
And I think actually, if we hear about these characters, it will be because they left the Jedi Order and maybe they had the right idea and stuff like that.
Mm.
And maybe he read about them.
Yeah, now this goes to... Now, if Steve was here, you know what he would do? He'd be able to rein us in and he'd say, look, hang on a minute, I'm here to represent the casual Star Wars fan, and I don't... Okay. If you walk on characters like Kanan and Ahsoka, even in a reference, you're going to lose a large percentage of the audience because not everyone's into the deep cuts the way we are.
This is true.
So if Luke mentions Kanan or Ahsoka in passing, might be a little bit fan service, but if they lean on it,
it would have to be unnamed characters. So like he just kind of nods to people who did it.
Yeah.
Rather than
Yeah. So that if he nods in that direction and we come out of that film thinking, did you get the reference to Bendu? Or did you get the reference to Ahsoka? Imagine if you see on a piece of parchment somewhere, because we know that paper exists in Star Wars. Mm-hmm. If you see Ahsoka's her fulcrum emblem, the little emblem that's on the crates and things like that. Well, if there's something like that in a page of one of the Journals of the Will where he's flipping through talking about whatever, and you see that and it's like, oh, that registers to me because I know that thing, but it doesn't distract the casual audience.
Mm-hmm.
It would be something like that.
Yeah.
I think if, as much as I love the idea that The Last Jedi would be Luke putting together a group of the survivors to go and take on the First Order, I love that. It requires too much understanding of expanded storytelling.
Yes.
And so it breaks the casual moviegoer's brain.
There is that.
And we really can't do that. And I don't think that they would be bold enough to do that. And plus they've brought someone in like Rian Johnson to make this film, and I don't think he's necessarily going to be familiar with those characters going in when he writes his story.
Yeah.
They might be something that he's advised to then layer it in meetings with the story group when it starts to grow and take shape. Why don't you put in a reference there? Why don't you put a nod there? Easter eggs.
Yeah.
But I don't think they'll lean on it. I do think that at the moment, everything we've spoken about, yes, the international merchandising materials, it was a plural Last Jedi. From Ryan's point of view, it's a singular.
He still sees it as one,
Last Jedi, but it could be both.
It could, because it could be that we're going to hear over the course of the film about the other ones who were left before, and now they're all gone, and he's the only one that's remained.
We can get those hints and those references, and of course, it's the Last Jedi at the first temple, but you start the film, you've got the Last Jedi Luke, and by the end of the film, when Rey's proven herself, you have the Last Jedi plural. It's Luke and Rey. They're the last of the Jedi. So it kind of works. We can have our cake and eat it in this.
Indeed. And it's delicious and not filling because we still have it.
Yeah. But
that got away from me.
Full filling. It's, don't worry, I'm there to save you. It's, I think it could be both. I love the idea that they're going to reference these characters off screen, and we'll get it because we're diehard fans, but it won't have a negative effect on the casual viewer because that would not be cool. What an awesome question. Thank you, Rando.
Yeah, it was cool.
And Rondo. A great Rondo and a great reference to the Great Lines. Thank you for that.
Indeed.
And if you're not local, my apologies. It's very niche. All right, we're going to run off to our break now. Spoiler alert, there is no Connor's Corner this week.
Indeed.
Hopefully we'll be returning next week with the other half of the show, the other half of the hosts.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that goes. You got the best ones. What more do you want? Okay, we're going to go to a break now. And when we come back, we're going to jump straight into some Star Wars news. We'll be right back. If you'd like to support what we do here at Talk Star Wars, you can do so by becoming a TSW sponsor. For as little as £1 per month, given securely via PayPal, you'll help us keep the lights on here at Talk Star Wars. When you become a TSW sponsor, we will automatically make you a TSW VIP. As a VIP, you'll get access to an exclusive stream of content that provides you with a daily podcast called the TSW Kessel Run, membership to the TSW VIP Facebook group, priority releases of shows such as the TSW Toy Box and TSW Comics. You'll also get priority access to the TSW Feature Com series and weekly Facebook Live and AMA sessions. There are also newsletters and a monthly prize draw. Head to talkstarwars.co.uk/support and become a TSW sponsor today, and the Force will be with you always.
And we're back. So you've just heard about how it's possible to get in on even more fun from Talk Star Wars with the TSW VIP program, for which you receive early access to certain episodes. You heard it all in the bit that just played. So, you know, if you're interested in that, go to talkstarwars.co.uk/support, where you can find out more. Normally, it would be customary to hear from Connor's Corner, but Connor's on holiday, isn't he?
He's been on a long holiday, yeah.
So
he's having all the holidays.
I'm just going to take some of your news, Mark. So just, you know, deal with that. So let's see what we've got on the news docket. So it seems that Uncle George, our lovely, beloved Uncle George, has been advising Kathleen Kennedy, on how the Jedi should have evolved at this point in time. So the quote reads, "Although his original story treatments for where the saga might go have gone largely unused, Kennedy said some of Lucas's broader ideas are still providing the foundation, like handing off the heroism to a new group of characters." So then there's a quote, I'm guessing, from Kathleen.
Exactly, yeah.
That says, "I think he's starting to settle into this and just be a fan. It's taken a while. It's hard to let go after 40 years. That's a lot of expectation and things he thought a lot about. Suddenly that next generation, that whole thematic idea he came up with is in process." What do you think of that news and that quote?
I think it's... I was divided or conflicted, I think, initially, because my thoughts were, I thought he was done, and I thought he should be going, but then I realised that there probably isn't a better person around to counsel Kathleen and the story group, the way he has done with Filoni, about the Jedi and the Jedi lore, Star Wars lore, than George Lucas. He doesn't need to be involved in sort of plotting out this galaxy of stories now. He doesn't need to be involved in that, but the mechanics of it, who better to advise you on how a machine works than the guy that built it? Yeah,
absolutely. I totally agree.
That first quote, I didn't credit it, but that first quote was Breznican.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been pretty prolific.
Oh, he's on fire, isn't he?
In the last couple of weeks, he's been putting out some good stuff. He's been doing good work.
He has. He's brilliant.
The Brez,
friend of the show.
He is. We like him very much.
I also like this quote from Kathleen about how it's taken George a long while to get used to the concept of no longer being at the helm of Star Wars and kind of enjoying it as a fan. I had sympathy for that, for the idea that, you know, he walked away. Like I mentioned it the other day, I was talking about it on the Kessel Run, but he kind of took his big check, gave over the keys and walked away. And it must have been, he looked back, probably, this mental image I painted for myself, he looked back half expecting to see everybody sort of waving slowly at him as he was walking off.
Yeah.
But he looked back and they were all huddled over a table, like getting things started. It must have been like, no, what have I done? I've just let go of this thing I've spent 4 decades building.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's nice to know that he's still there as counsel when they need him.
Yeah. It's got to be tough. Like, for him, you know, I can only imagine, like, you know, I can't even imagine handing over the reins of my podcast to another person just to produce an episode. Exactly. I can't imagine 40 years of, you know, thinking and kind of working things out in his head and stuff. And he's got to let some of that just disappear.
Yeah.
It must be incredibly difficult.
Can you imagine the first time he saw like a trailer for The Force Awakens?
Yeah.
And seeing it and thinking, and especially now that we know that he had an idea in mind. And he gave new Lucasfilm, he gave them a treatment. I don't know whether it was a story treatment, certainly an outline that it scaled down all the ages of the lead characters in The Force Awakens. I think they were grandkids of Anakin and you know, like Ben, but there were more on display and they were a hell of a lot younger. he gave that over, and he must have thought, well, this will get them started. And then they were just sort of like, no, thanks, we're good. That's got to be hard.
But it's my original vision.
Yeah. And then you see footage for the first time that you've had no hand in crafting. Yeah, it must be that, mustn't it?
Yeah, there must be like, I'd have done that different.
Also in this story, I'm not sure which link I've included, but also in this story was a reference to one of George's comments about The Force Awakens when he said, I think it'll please the fans. And that was all he said on it. He didn't say he thought it was good. No,
he says like, if you like Star Wars, you'll like it. And looking back on it, you sort of get it because it's, familiar, kind of a familiar hope, as I remember hearing it described in Honest Trailers.
Oh, that's
a familiar hope. Well, no, it's, it's kind of good-natured snark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed it anyway.
He did make a comment as well, George, about his hopes for The Last Jedi, that it will be less like The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens was very close to A New Hope, and he's hoping that Last Jedi will step a little bit further away from its equivalent in Empire. It would be a little bit further away from that than The Force Awakens was from A New Hope. So that's kind of that's a very sober sort of way of looking at it, and I hope he's pleased. I'm sure he's seen it.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's seen something at least.
Indeed.
And he will remain quiet now, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting comments. I never expected for a second that he would be this close to it at this stage, but I'm kind of glad that he was.
I sort of get it. I do understand what you mean, that it's like, you wouldn't necessarily assume that you would assume they were good to go and they have everything they needed. But at the same time, like you said, if they're going to have somebody to consult on the Jedi law, it kind of has to be George, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I'm kind of glad. I'd rather they check in and say, how would you see this, rather than going down a route that's complete departure. Because if they go too far down the rabbit hole, they'll actually upset more fans.
Yeah, that's true. Another, I told a little story on the Kessel Run the other day when I first discussed this. I won't go into it now because half the people that listen to this show probably heard it already. But there's an artist named Nick Tidnam once gave me some advice about composition when you sketch or you paint.
Okay.
He said, don't edit the truth.
Right.
Because if you try and remove something from a composition, if you're drawing something, and there's an element in there that you don't necessarily like, if you just omit it from the drawing,
right,
it could betray itself because of the way it relates in reality to the other things around it. So, if something of color will reflect color on the items around it, something will support the neighboring item. So if you removing it, the gravity and the weight of the thing next to it would be affected. There was an example. My father-in-law once was painting something that had an element in it. It was a rifle and it had a strap on it. Okay. And he said, I don't really like the strap, I might take it out. And I said, no, don't take it out, because you don't know how that affects everything else that's going on around it. And your eye will pick it out. And this thing with George is, if now people that don't fully understand George's lore about the Force and about the Jedi, and they start making changes, you don't know what that's going to affect. You might undo something that the seeds that were sown 40 years ago in the story, you might undo it if you'll unpick it by being careless with it. Mm-hmm. If you try and remove something from the composition, we will notice it. It will call attention to itself. Yeah. So at this point in time, there's nobody better to bring in and say, how's this work? Get the thing back on its feet and start telling new stories and setting new rules based on what George can give now.
Yeah.
And in his absence, Dave Filoni's probably the next best person to sort of be in that seat, in the God seat, telling us how this thing works. Mm-hmm. The last thing they can do is edit the truth. You take one thing out, who knows, it will come tumbling down and stop making sense and betray what came before it. And that's my biggest concern with it all right now.
Yeah. I think it comes back to the subject. We've talked about it in great depth, that there's a lot of kind of deference and reverence of George rather than, almost the sort of the almost implicit, oh, this was crap kind of attitude. It's very much everything they're doing is done with a kind of a respect of his original work, and it's not treading over anything. It's just complementing and adding to and expanding on the stuff that was already there.
Exactly. It's when they do keep a distance, it is a respectful distance. If they are keeping the prequels at arm's length at the moment, then they're doing it not because, and they're not coming out and saying, no, we're not going near that again because that was a turd. They're moving forward with it. They Metachlorians is case in point, an example, isn't it?
Yes.
Most people bristle at the use of the word midichlorian.
Yeah.
And so perhaps we won't see that again.
Maybe. It's interesting, though, because I was talking to Joe Crouch about this the other day. He ain't no slouch. And he was saying that he just learned that they were always part of George's mindset about the Force.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's weird that they get such a poisonous rap from some people when actually they've always been there.
Yeah.
I think I read that in. Have you read? Is it in Secret History of Star Wars? Because I feel like I've read it and I don't remember where else I would have read it other than that book.
No, I don't know. That's it's new to me.
Oh, okay.
That it was part of George's.
Did I pick it up then?
But the that is precisely the thing I was talking about with editing the truth.
Yeah.
That if midichlorians are the things you take out now, then you've fundamentally taken a part of George's machine away, and you don't know how that's going to have a knock-on effect to everything else. Kyber crystals might depend on midichlorians. We don't know yet.
Oh, there you go. They were expressed in the original trilogy, establishing when he was establishing guidelines in 1977.
Okay.
They have more midichlorians in their cells. That's a quote from The Making of Star Wars, the definitive story behind the original film. There you go. That's the name of the book.
Cool.
So yeah, they've always been there. They were just never mentioned until 1999. Apparently, George felt there wasn't time to introduce the concept in the original trilogy. So he slowed Phantom Menace down to a crawl. So there's nothing but time.
Yeah, interesting. But that's the thing. That will be my concern. That if you delete that, you don't know how that's going to affect. Like you just said, it's been part of Star Wars since its inception. So to ignore it now betrays and we don't know what George is advising them on where the Jedi should go, what the Jedi should become. We don't know how much that leans on midichlorians and the rules he set out early on. Even if it was in his own mind in the OT era. So, I'm glad he's still a part of it. Never expected it to be the case, but I'm glad when he took all that, when he signed over ownership to Bob Iger. You
thought it would be it?
I thought that was it.
Yeah.
And I thought the Star Wars we were getting was going to be sans George, but I'm kind of glad that it isn't.
No, I'm pleased. I'm fine with that. I'm good.
Cool.
Pleased with that indeed.
Okay, right. The next story is Last Jedi. So we need to give potential spoiler warning here because there's a couple of items lifted from a book that may or may not give away some of the early moments of the movie. So if you're spoiler averse, now is the time to take your leave, and we will speak to you again next week. Thank you for joining us. Nothing lies beyond here but spoilery talk. Okay, you're gone. Right. All right, so we have an idea how The Last Jedi will start, thanks to the book Look and Find, which you can pre-order through our Amazon link.
Is it a kid's book?
It is a kid's book, yes.
It sounds like a kid's book.
It is, but it has got some pretty focused... I mean, you can read these highlighted passages if you like, Rob.
Yeah.
But they're pretty focused references, so the floor is yours.
Cool. All right, so I'll read. Do you want me to give it a bit of an audiobook flair?
If you want to, that's fine. Yeah, do one at a time, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, that's fine. Starkiller Base is vanquished, but Kylo Ren has escaped. Thanks to Rey and her friends, BB-8 brought Luke Skywalker's coordinates back to the Resistance. On their behalf, Rey travels to the planet Arc-2, bless you, hoping to enlist Luke's help. While Rey persuades the Last Jedi to join the Resistance, look for these rocky features. What? That's a weird crawl.
That derails it. Crawl. That would be brilliant, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So there's a reference to The Last Jedi in there as well, right?
Yeah.
So that gives us a little bit of a hint at some of this stuff Kylo Ren has escaped. That's obviously from the Resistance POV, right? To him, it was an escape. To him, that's going back to the Master to get the next level up.
Next level. Yeah, the next level training. Choose his perks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Upgrade his health.
Yep. He needs a bit more face dexterity.
Thanks to Rey and her friends, BB-8 brought Luke Skywalker's coordinates back to the Resistance. Yes, we've seen that. And on their behalf, Rey travels to Arc-2, hoping to enlist Luke's help, and Rey persuades the Last Jedi. While clearly that gives us
a lot.
Rey's intentions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not about her. It's not, and actually, that's sort of interesting because that suggests that her traveling there has nothing to do with learning. It's all to do with bringing him back with her.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Why Rey? This one little line, whilst Rey persuades the Last Jedi to join the Resistance, Luke,
you would think Leia would have a better chance.
So what's been... I mean, this, you can unpack this, and of course we're going to go wildly off book because...
That's what we do.
But to me, that suggests Leia won't go.
Yep.
Maybe because there's some bad blood between her and Luke.
Ooh, okay.
Not maybe necessarily...
or maybe she's worried he thinks there is or something.
Yeah, maybe... maybe he feels he's failed her by letting Ben fall.
Yeah.
Maybe he's feeling some sort of shame.
Or maybe she's like, he won't want to see me. It's just going to remind him of Ben.
Yeah. Or remind Luke how he has failed Leia and the Resistance and the Jedi and Ben himself.
Yeah.
And his father.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably quite difficult. But then Rey turns up because, why not send Poe or why not send Finn?
Yeah.
With the lightsaber, or why not just send Chewie and pop the lightsaber in R2 and send Chewie and R2 off?
Mm-hmm.
I think Rey's seen a potential in Rey, and there's all this talk of you.
Leia's seen that in Rey.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, sorry.
It's like now she can see potential in herself. Wow. Yeah. Come on.
Did you
overpowered?
Last week we spoke briefly about the concept of Kylo being the chosen one. Right?
Yes.
Not the definitive.
Not briefly enough.
Yeah. But in Luke's estimations, Ben's a chosen one.
Important, yeah. Right? Of vital importance.
Maybe Leia understood that. Maybe that was part of Luke's convincing Leia to release Ben into training. Maybe he said that there's something special about this kid. Right. I think he might be this person that I've read about in a prophecy.
Okay.
Let me train him. And Leia's like, well, what happened with Dad? All went a bit pear-shaped. Maybe we should.
No, you're right, mate.
Like, no, I've got you.
No, mate, no.
And then, of course, it went pear-shaped.
Yes.
Well, so that's the bad blood, right? That Rey,
all right. So that's the theory you're working with. Is there's beef there? Yeah,
that Leia sort of would prefer to err on the side of caution and keep the boy close to home.
Right.
Actually, she said she sent him to train with Luke, right? But I suspect that's the way she would see it, even if Luke said, "Let me have him," because I think he's his choice. She sent him off to train.
Okay.
It all went Pete Tong, and then Luke now thinks, I can't look at her because I failed her, and I failed the Jedi, and I failed the Resistance, and there's been this rise of darkness.
I failed myself.
But now Leia, I think the reason she sent Rey is because she's seen in Rey what Luke was talking about being present in Kylo Ren or being present in Ben.
Yeah.
So she must think, I'm going to send this girl, not because I just need a messenger, but because I think Luke will see in her what he was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
She's the chosen one. She's the subject of this prophecy. She's the one that's wielding this lightsaber. She put Ben on his arse. She put Kylo on his arse. So maybe she's what Luke was looking for. So I'll send her with the lightsaber. She can bring him back to us and get him back in the game. End the Barish vow.
Okay.
That's the way that one little line in there. That's the way I'm reading into that.
All right.
That he needs to be persuaded to come back.
Oh, that much is definitely implied heavily in that line. Is
she really the right person to do that unless Leia can't go herself because it might push Luke further away?
Yeah.
And she's sending something to Luke that he will recognise immediately and recognise the value in it. And what's unspoken there is, look, brother, this is what you were looking for all along. We found her. Come back, let's do some good.
Okay.
I think that kind of works.
Oh, yeah. I think that works fine. Sounds good to me.
Even if in my dullard mind names are interchangeable and that gets really hard to follow, I appreciate that. But,
yeah.
When I'm firing on both my cylinders...
You have a brain that works especially well when it works.
when it bothers to wake up with the rest of me. All right, so the next passage then. We have an idea how The Last Jedi will start thanks to the Look and Find book.
Okay. Do you want
another dramatic read, please, Mr. Rob?
All right. Meanwhile... Sorry, I just had to do that. Meanwhile, Poe is busy doing some persuading of his own. He and BB-8 are making runs through the First Order's latest assault fleet to clear the way for the Resistance bomber squadron, headed by ace pilot Page. BB-8 will keep the coordinates straight. You look out for these First Order ships. What color is the First Order?
So, is this the opening sequence?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it would kind of fit nicely because we didn't have that in Empire. We didn't have the evacuation of Yavin 4. Which we could have had because it happened immediately afterwards.
Yes.
And in this, because this one follows on straight away, sort of picks up immediately where episode 7 left off or thereabouts, you can do that.
Yeah.
You can have the escape. You can have that be where, Paige meets her demise. That's
definitely a thing. And I think we're starting, you can read into this and you can start to identify where our time jump is going to be.
Okay.
So like you've just very astutely pointed out, Rob, that this is the bit of the Star Wars story we were missing between A New Hope and Empire.
Mm-hmm.
This is bugging out from the previous base and getting to safety. And that might be our first act set piece.
Yeah.
Where we lose Paige.
Mm-hmm.
So there'll be a big action scene and that character will be well defined enough for us to appreciate her and her significance later on.
Yeah.
And then we can go to Arc 2, or maybe we start at Arc 2 and we see Luke and Rey start to build their relationship together. Then you have your time jump. You're on Crate, the new resistance base. Finn wakes up. Paige is gone. Rose is suddenly filled with a new sense of purpose because she's lost her sister. I want to go on a mission. I want to make more of an effort. I've been this mechanic in the background for long enough, but now I want to step up and get involved the way my sister did. Finn, you're an amazing hero. You've got to help me find Snoke's Megastar Destroyer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the mission they go on. And then because you've made that time jump there, when you leave Arc 2 and go back to the Resistance, when they set up on Crate, when we go back to Arc 2, the corresponding time jump will explain Rey's progress.
Yeah. And that works.
So you're starting to show the transition of time better than Star Wars ever has done before. Like Luke was on Dagobah for 40 days training.
Yeah.
We'll get a better idea that Rey has been there training. If we leave her at the end in the Rey costume from the end of Force Awakens, when we go back, she's in more of the Qui-Gon like clothing with the new haircut,
Mm-hmm.
So it shows the transition of time. And then you can have slightly more familiar exchanges between Luke and Rey and a bit more of a shorthand, a bit more of a active dialogue between the two rather than a getting to know you, sort of feeling each other out. They're actually, they've been in each other's company long enough.
Mm-hmm.
So when they do come back into the fray, we buy that they're working together as master and apprentice, if in fact Luke does leave Mark 2.
Yeah. Here's a thought, actually. Something's just popped into my head. This is slightly tangentially related to what we've just been discussing.
Mm.
You know how Rian Johnson was saying that we would have something in Last Jedi we'd never had before?
Yeah.
Cold open, then crawl.
Oh.
So they start so they open with, like they did with Rogue One.
Yeah.
With Luke and Rey.
Yeah.
And then you don't need to tell their story in the crawl because you've seen it.
Mm.
So the crawl just tells you what else is going on at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know. It
I don't know.
would definitely be something we haven't seen. I can tell you that much.
That's all I'm. That's all I'm suggesting. I'm not actually kind of offering an opinion on it.
You're not being an advocate for it.
No. It's just a thought of like, do you think that would be something they might consider doing?
I don't think it would be, in all honesty. Okay. Not just because I don't want to see it, but I don't think they would be. I think it's too much of a break of the Star Wars code. The
saga form, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I know Ryan was on the Star Wars show last night, and he was joking about. I don't know if you saw this. I think I'm going to mention it in the show notes, but I'll give you a little heads up. Mm-hmm. He was telling the story. He's at Skywalker Sound at the moment. He was telling the story about how he was scoring with John Williams.
Right.
And when they first sat down together and ran the film, when they first ran the film, he said it went from the Lucasfilm logo to A Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far, Far Away. And then he leant over to John Williams and he said, this first cue's temporary. We're going to have to put something else in here. And it was the iconic fanfare. He was only joking. Yeah. But he said everything was too loud for me to really explain to John Williams that was my effort at dad humour. Yeah. And not really a point I was trying to make. So it sounds to me like they're very much preserving the opening of the film. You don't go Lucasfilm logo A Long Time Ago, iconic fanfare, and then silence to Luke, and then an opening crawl.
Oh no, I was thinking, open with A Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far, Far Away. Then you go to Arc 2. Then you have Luke and Rey, and then it transitions from there to Star Wars.
Well, I think with what Ryan's just explained about A Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far, Far Away, and then his joke to John Williams about this next cue is temporary. I think it's clear that he's preserving the opening, and I'm glad because you can bend those rules with the standalones and get away with it. We let them off. It was unusual, but we let them off, didn't we?
I did.
Yeah. I was quite happy with the structure of the opening of Rogue One, even though it did catch me off guard the first viewing. But I don't think I wouldn't accept it with Episode 8. I think it would put me off straight away. Okay. And I would have trouble getting into the film after that point. Yeah. I think they need to preserve that structure. But I do think that what you're saying about the thing that Star Wars hasn't done before is that massive jump in time. Yeah. It's not been done well, certainly, previously. It's happened between films. Yeah. But here we're starting straight where we leave off. So it's like the next day almost. Yeah. So to my mind, the opening crawl would be a summation of either what happened in the previous episode. Yep. Or what happened in that downtime at the end of The Force Awakens. So the moment that Finn gets carried off by Chewie and Rey kisses him and says, goodbye, my friend. Yeah. There was a period of time in there that is missing that we might need to get caught up on. That might
from
be
certain characters' points of view, yeah.
Yeah. That might be, the opening crawl might be, this is what. Remember, Empire was from Vader's point of view, wasn't it? The opening crawl. Yeah. It was very much Vader, like the Death Star's been destroyed. They chased the rebels. Now Vader wants to find Luke. That could be bringing us up to speed with what happened when Kylo Ren went back to Snoke.
Yeah.
In that period of time. Because the first time we see Kylo Ren in this film, he's going to be presumably healed. You know, the moving scar thing.
Yeah.
So it's not going to pick up with Hux taking Ren from Starkiller to Snoke. It's going to pick up with the events from the end of the film as we know it.
Yeah.
Which is then bugging out from Dakar and heading to Crate.
Mm-hmm.
So with the crawl might be a summation of what happened to Hux and Kylo Ren going to Snoke, what Snoke's opinion is on Rey, and what orders he gives to Kylo Ren about Rey and about Luke, what to do next. And then we go back into the film proper, which picks up immediately after the end of that movie, and that kind of makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm all right with that. So, it was just a thought.
Yeah,
purely just popped into my head, so I thought I'd raise it because sometimes that happens and you go, oh,
yeah.
But sometimes not so much.
And this is a different because I think it would ruffle too many feathers. I think.
Yeah. Okay.
To do it, and with the way everyone's running a little bit hot at the moment, aren't they? After the Lord and Miller firing, and
yeah, true.
There's a lot of controversy. I think they'll want to go as safe as possible, and rightly so too, because that's the only way I think to tell a Star Wars saga story is with that
safe
structure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think huge time jump. The first part of the film, I think, if it starts with the Resistance, then goes to Arc 2, then we time jump and go to pick up with the Resistance a little while later on when Finn wakes up. Then when we go back to Arc 2, we understand there's been a gap in time where Luke and Rey have developed their relationship. That would work to me. That time jump, I think, is something that we haven't really seen before. Mm-hmm. Certainly within the structure of a film. So that kind of works.
Yeah.
So this last piece on that subject is, so it appears the opening scene of The Last Jedi will be the Resistance evacuating Dakar, likely heading to another base, which feels reminiscent of the evacuation of Hoth when the Empire finds a hidden rebel base on the snow planet in Empire Strikes Back, but there wasn't much of a space battle during that attack. So we could get huge space battle over Dakar, and then they run, and then we get like the third act battle on Crate.
Yeah.
Which will be great because we'll then be getting we'll be getting more bang for our buck than we did in Empire.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to bookend the film with set pieces.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right. Hasbro.
Yes.
Hasbro toys reveal a look at Snoke's ship/base, and we hear some lines of dialogue from the movie. Now, this came out in 2 commercials on the Hasbro YouTube channel today.
Okay.
I woke up this morning and Jay had shared something in the VIP group, and Adam Sheldon had also shared a commercial in the VIP group. So I watched both of them. I'm glad that I did.
Okay.
Because they've been pulled down.
Right.
And they're on the official Hasbro channel.
Yeah.
And they've still pulled them down. Now, I think it's potentially because of the lines of dialogue. But this screen grab in the show notes is an image I took from the trailer.
Okay.
So we'll get to that in a second. But there's this whole thing, you might have heard Mark talking about it, Mark Airy on the toy box. It's called the Force Link. It's
the bracelet thing.
The new technology. It's a bracelet. Yeah. So the kid/collector will wear the Force bracelet when they're playing with the toys, and the proximity of that glove to the figure will trigger some lines of dialogue or some sound effects.
Okay.
From the glove. The glove has like a speaker on it. So if you pick up the character, it might say a couple of lines, or if you move the character in a certain way, it will have a force effect associated with it. So when you shake Rey, you get lightsaber effects. When you pick up the TIE Silencer, Kylo Ren's new ship, you get blaster effects and thruster effects and all that sort of stuff. It's very, very cool. During the commercial, they actually revealed 2 lines of dialogue from Kylo Ren.
Okay.
No, I did go back just to double check because I've written in the show notes that he says the dark side guides me.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if he says the dark side guides me or the darkness guides me. I think it was the dark side.
Okay.
But I went back to check, and that's when I noticed that the commercials had been pulled.
Right.
And there was a second line of dialogue where Kylo Ren says, I know what I must do. And he's saying that when in the commercial, the kid puts the Kylo Ren action figure down next to Snoke.
Right, okay.
So I don't know whether the proximity of the figures generates a combination of lines.
Right.
When the glove picks up that you're near both of them, that seems like a bit of a stretch. Or whether,
I mean, I don't know much about toy tech, but I imagine it's probably doable.
Yeah, possibly. It could just be also an editing choice for the trailer that you pick that line of dialogue and plop it in there.
Yeah.
But it was quite interesting, and I wasn't sure when I first heard them if they were lines from The Force Awakens that I'd just forgotten, or if they were from Last Jedi. But it feels very much like Last Jedi to me.
Yeah.
Can you remember? Do you recall those lines being used elsewhere?
Dark side guides me. No, they don't ring any bells from Force Awakens.
No, I'm pretty sure that it is something that's destined for The Last Jedi. And I wonder if that's what made Hasbro pull these down, or maybe Lucasfilm said, nope, too soon, pull that down, because maybe they're lines that they're going to feature in a trailer. And the commercial shouldn't have been released before the trailer.
Right.
Also, this playset, you might be able to see in this screen grab, that's actually BB-8.
Yeah, it's a BB-8 that sort of opens up, isn't it? Like the old Mighty Max and Polly Pocket.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so you get this huge sphere, and then you've got BB-8's head on the top. So that's a really cool little playset. And it opens up into this thing now. It refers to itself as 4 levels of intergalactic adventure.
Ooh.
It transforms from BB-8 into 4 levels of intergalactic adventure, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And would work really well as a podcast episode title.
Yes.
Guess where I'm going with that. But I think this is a Star Destroyer.
I think that's reasonable.
I think it's Snoke's Mega Star Destroyer. Now, we had heard early on that Snoke was going to remain in motion throughout the movie so that he could never be located or pinned down.
Okay.
And he would be on this Mega Star Destroyer.
Right.
And that's where he was, in fact, during the events of The Force Awakens, was on the Mega Star Destroyer.
Right.
And that's why he wasn't on Starkiller Base.
Yeah.
So I believe that this is the Star Destroyer. And if we look at the playset there on that screen grab, which has been helpfully labelled for us by the fine people at Hasbro, we get some interesting things like there's this interrogation chair, which I guess could be a callback to The Force Awakens.
Yeah, or the same thing, but on a different Star Destroyer.
Indeed.
Because I imagine that's where they escaped from a Star Destroyer, didn't they? When they
Poe
Dameron was on one.
Yeah, Poe was on the Finalizer, which was Kylo's Star Destroyer, and that's where that chair was. But then he had another chair on Starkiller, didn't he? That he had Rey in.
Yes.
So this one is obviously the chair that Snoke has for his own use, or maybe Phasma's use or something.
Yeah.
On the Mega Star Destroyer. But we also get like a little trash compactor, which may just be a cute little nod to what's gone before.
Yeah.
But there's also like trapdoors, collapsing catwalks. This all could be stuff that just adds play value. So I'm trying not to read too much into it. You know, they're staples of Star Wars storytelling, aren't they?
Yeah.
So not going to read too much into that. A garrison corridor, which means very, very little. Firing cannon. Okay. Well, maybe there's an action set piece that requires a firing cannon. There's the hangar deck. All right. Yep. Fair enough. We saw a hangar deck in Star Wars. We saw a hangar deck in The Force Awakens. This Lightspeed tracking room.
I don't even know if that adds fun.
That doesn't add fun. That's plot specific.
Yeah.
That is plot specific.
That sounds boring, though.
It sounds boring unless it's part of an element of how
a particular scene goes down or something,
or how Finn and Rose find the location of the Mega Star Destroyer.
Now,
the box art for this thing, has Rey, Finn, and Rose positioned. The action figures positioned in this playset.
Okay.
So it's reasonable to assume that they make it this far.
Yes.
And I think what we're going to find is that Finn and Rose go off to look for hackers, slicers in the Star Wars universe, like DJ and Justin Theroux's character, because they need to be able to find the Mega Star Destroyer, which might require the use of a lightspeed tracking room or some similar technology that only a slicer can get access to, so that they can find the Mega Star Destroyer and then get to it and infiltrate it. Remember, we've seen both Finn and Rose in Imperial costumes in disguise on their mission. So if they infiltrate the Mega Star Destroyer once they found it, that could be what this reference is about. The lightspeed tracking room. How they find the Mega Star Destroyer. And then right at the top here, we get the throne room, which we have the red walls, the throne. It's very similar to the image we saw recently of the Praetorian Guard. Like last week we were looking at, weren't we? The 2 Praetorian Guard in a largely red environment. I think that's Snoke's throne room on the Mega Star Destroyer. There's a handily indicated guard in this image. And then Snoke proving how big he is. You see the height of that character against the Praetorian Guard.
He's like 7.5, 8 foot.
And then there's this strange thing I noticed on Reddit today. People were talking about this glowing blue thing, that might have some significance. It could just relate to a part of BB-8's head. Remember, BB-8's on the other side of this playset.
Could be the lens.
Could be something to do with that, but it might actually be specific to the plot of The Last Jedi as well. And remember the sort of things, I don't know if you're reading the comic books, but at the moment there's, I'm reading Dr. Aphra. I've not caught up, so I'm not current. But there is a Jedi, has transferred his essence into a kyber crystal. So could this be something similar? I don't know. That's a huge leap, and that requires so much knowledge of expanded storytelling that's probably not. But that's something kind of... It could just be one of those tchotchkes, like one of those old glass balls that shot lightning when you put your hands on it. Might be that. He might have just popped down to Sharper Image and picked up one of these things in a sale. We don't know. I'm not willing to call either way, but there's so many things in this image that are thought-provoking. Not just the dialogue that Kylo speaks. And Kylo's in this commercial. They pop him down in this playset. Again, could just be play value. Again, could be an indication that that's where we see Kylo. That's where he re-enters the story for us. When he limps back to his master's side. But who knows? It's great. It's great little
Lots of speculation fodder.
Image, there's tons of stuff in there for us to work with, isn't there? Great stuff. I definitely think the light speed tracking room is significant in some way.
I think it has to be in the set, right? I think
really,
if it
really
was
random, isn't it?
Yeah, otherwise it's too random. Otherwise, it doesn't fit.
Yeah, so if you want to know what we're talking about, download the show notes from the description of this episode. You'll download as a PDF. It'll open in your browser, and you can check that image out. It's really, really pretty cool. And I'm glad we've seen Snoke, so we get we can put the whole, is he really small talk to bed? Because yes, he is. He's 3 3/4 inches.
Yeah. But even then, all the others, they're 3.5.
Yeah. No, he's definitely, this character is definitely going to be quite a formidable physical presence in this movie, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Okay, interesting. Yeah, Hasbro pulled those commercials.
Yes,
amazing.
Indeed.
Okay. We're going to wrap up this evening on this one thing from Han Solo this week.
Yeah.
Ron didn't fail to deliver this week. He's always putting out quality stuff from that set. And this image he tweeted, or is this an Instagram? No, this went out on Twitter.
That's Twitter, yeah.
Was an image from the Han Solo set. it's got a lot of minds racing, what this could mean.
Okay.
It is a Death Squad commander helmet and what looks like potentially a blaster underneath it.
That looks like a blaster, yeah.
Yeah. Resting on a very Imperial-looking control panel.
Yes.
With the content of Ron's tweet is the Empire looms large.
Yeah.
Rob, what, if anything, are we to read into this?
I think it's a heist. I mean, we've heard it's a heist movie, right? Or something along those lines. I think it's an Imperial outpost.
Okay.
That they're heisting on.
That they're heisting all over.
Yeah. Heisting upon their heistness.
Your royal heistness.
Their heistitude is being directed.
Their heistifications.
Fully heistily at
high speed
at an Imperial outpost.
Yeah. I think that's a really reasonable guess. What I think is unreasonable is speculating that this is going to be a flash forward to the Death Star.
What?
I read that in an outlet this morning. No, I'm serious.
No, I don't mean you. I mean whoever it is. Come on.
It's
silly. That's just silly.
It is a bit of a reach. I think
somewhat.
You can understand why. I mean, the helmet and that little pod that the helmet's resting under controls are very reminiscent of the Death Star. And in collecting terms, the action figure that wears this helmet has been referred to as both the Death Star Commander and the Death Squad Commander.
Okay.
So I think when they're on an installation elsewhere, Death Squad Commander. When that same position is filled by HR on a Death Star, they change the employee registration details to read Death Star Commander.
They could just both say Commander.
Yeah, they could.
But they need one contract.
Yeah, they don't need specific. Yeah, and then you can transfer people out.
Not sure what they're like on printer paper.
Yeah, you don't want to have to enter into aggressive negotiations when you're trying to relocate somebody and there's a change of job title.
That's it. You've got you have to do my contract from scratch then, so I want more money.
Yeah. There was if you were
Come on.
Goodness me. That is just an offensive form of speed
that is basically my life you're hearing there. If people listen to the Emotionally 14 podcast, good news, you get lots of them too.
You get some extra free bonus ones.
Yeah, extra free bonus episodes, Highway to the Danger Zone.
I'm going to be very generous about this image. And
okay.
I'm going to give the outlets that we're talking about the Death Star the benefit of the doubt and think that there is a very slim chance that if you're squint a little bit and turn your head at a certain angle, this could be the start of the Death Star, and maybe that's where they drew that conclusion.
Right.
That this might actually be on the Death Star.
Okay.
But I think an important thing to bear in mind is that Han Solo had no idea of the Death Star's existence in A New Hope. And he said if the Empire had a weapon like that, I'd have heard about it.
Yeah.
So there's no way he would be involved with this. It doesn't mean that we're not going to cut away from Han and someone else be involved with the Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's unlikely.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And in the background of this, there's some other not very Death Star-y type stuff. I mean, it looks like there's a moisture evaporator over here, and there's some other sort of clunky stuff over here with some very non-Imperial glyphs on the wall. So this looks to me like it's an installation on a planet that isn't necessarily originally Imperial.
It's like it's a planet they're occupying rather than a settlement or whatever.
Yeah. And I don't know about your take on this, Rob, but the way I'm looking at the Empire in this Han Solo film is more like a police force.
Yeah, almost like parts of Rogue One, the sort of Jedi parts.
Yes.
Where they're sort of shaking down people and, but like a less energetic form of that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like not so much with the shakedowns, not so much with the breaking down doors, all that sort of stuff. Just very much that we're here and don't cause any trouble or you're going to have to deal with us.
Yeah, and almost like they're being casual bullies.
Yeah. Plus also, I mean, the word looms in that tweet is, that's kind of what it denotes is, people they're sort of going like, oh, don't act up. Because if you do.
Yeah, they might put the jackboot down.
Exactly.
Is what we said before or certainly the point I was playing around with previously was that the Empire would form almost the background, the environment, the landscape of this story, if you like. They are a fixture of Han's life because they've been in play for quite a long time.
Yeah.
It is just the status quo. The Empire are just there. And the Empire are no longer this conquering army. They are the singular power. So the people that represent the Empire on these planets now are just going to be an occupying force.
Yeah.
There might be police, like this might be a checkpoint. There might be police that are protecting the Empire's interests or the interests of people connected to the Empire, like on Tatooine maybe, the Empire are there, but they're really, I've only got one eye on things because they're going to give the Hutts the leeway they need to run
their illegal stuff.
Run their crime syndicate.
Yeah.
They're going to let Black Sun have enough leeway to run their crime syndicate. They're just kind of casually there, just sort of saying that don't get too in our face or you're going to make us take action. We just want to kind of be here just in case the Empire's interests aren't being looked out for. But if you want to go ahead and do whatever you're going to do, which is kind of cool. I think it's a really cool use of the Empire that we'd seen it rise up as this hate-fueled machine with millions of clones as it's, that's the saber they're rattling, is this army of millions of clones. And now it's just kind of like lazy, disinterested, disaffected conscripts.
Because they're just spread too thin.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Spread too thin. And they're the dull edge of this thing now because they're not trying to win anymore. They've won.
Yeah.
They're the dull edge of it. And this might be like the Outer Rim. It kind of seems sort of dusty and dirty and used, and the Evaporator sort of denotes to me that this is one of the Outer Rim planets. So you're going to get these casually disinterested people that think it's better to be a government employee than to be rooting around salvaging rubbish for a living. I like that idea that's what the Empire are going to be. Kind of a scaled down version of what they were before, but they're kind of there ready to jump back into action if they need to.
Yeah, but they've all got a little bit comfortable, a little bit, round, sort of soft around the edges almost. Yeah. Because like you say, they've won. They've been in the driving seat for 15 plus years.
There's no Rebel Alliance yet.
No.
There are Rebel cells.
Yes.
But there's no alliance yet. So they haven't really got a significant threat. They've got the odd terrorist here and there doing bits and pieces. And then there's this annoyance of, come those little band of scallywags again trying to rob something from us. And that'll be Han, Lando and Beckett and all those until they're hired, I think, to do something meaningful by Emilia Clarke's character, which is what we saw in that leaked footage, I think, was them being asked to get something for her that, they're used to being like, I've made the comparison before that Beckett to me seems like he's like Fagin, and Lando and Han are like the Artful Dodger and Oliver Twist, respectively,
competing for his favour.
Yeah, exactly. And he's trying to train up this crew of petty thieves that can go out and just get them enough to get by. That's all they want.
Okay.
But then they're asked to do something that actually counts.
Right.
And that's when they're challenged. That's when they take risks. And maybe that's when Han loses his first mentor, because if you step up and you try and do something good, you're going to get burnt and you're going to lose people close to you. So if we try and scale it back down and we go back to what we did best before, we'll nick what we need to get by. We'll do the little illegal jobs we need to survive.
Yeah.
But don't stand out, because it's an old maxim of George's actually. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, but the nail that stands out gets pounded down.
Yeah.
Words to live by. He is probably not the spirit. That speeder bike was impressive. But so that might be Han's maxim. Let's not stand out.
It's not a problem if you don't look up.
Yeah. Yes. It's Jin's maxim. It's like, if we just keep our head down.
It doesn't matter who's in charge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll survive doing the small stuff. And that might be why he's reluctant to get involved with Obi-Wan and Luke later on until they throw big numbers at him.
Yeah.
Because he's thinking, I've seen the way this goes before. It doesn't end well.
Could be.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's a lot from one little image.
Sure.
I love
but then
this
that's part of the fun, isn't it?
It is. It really, really is. Did I put in the notes? Did I put the tweet? I'm not sure if I put the tweet in. No, that's a shame. So I have an auto tweet to thank Ron.
Oh, okay.
For this stuff.
Yeah.
It's on when I ran a post with this image in today on talkstars.co.uk, and I put the auto tweet in there that you can click on it and it sends a tweet to Ron Howard saying thanks for sharing your experience with Star Wars for us.
Yeah.
Or with us.
Mm-hmm.
I like this guy. He's doing good things.
Yeah, I'm totally on board.
Awesome. Right, that's us done. We ready to wrap this thing up?
Oh, there's only one thing, the one that just came in just before we started recording.
Oh, yeah, go on then.
Do you want to... Yeah, so basically, as literally 5 minutes before we started talking, is it the Hollywood Reporter that's come out with it? Mm-hmm. Is running a story that's suggesting that Obi-Wan is happening, and that they're in the early stages of putting it together. They think they might have a director.
Daldry, isn't it?
Stephen Daldry, yeah.
Stephen Daldry, the director of Billy Elliot, right?
Yeah, that's him. Yeah,
interesting choice.
They might have him in play. They did say that they weren't 100% kind of certain on having Ewan, which did seem odd to me. I don't necessarily know why that is, but
that's a concern. I mean, that could be something we've seen something play out this week with Bond. That
yes,
I think sort of speaks volumes about the way Hollywood works. Is that 1 minute, Daniel Craig's going to be Bond again. He's going to be Bond in 2 films, and then he comes out and says, "Nope, I've not signed on to that yet."
I thought that was the other way around. I thought people were saying he wasn't going to be Bond, and then he came out and said he was on for the next one.
Yeah, no, it went back and forth. So the first I heard of it was he'd said he's going to do 2 more films, and the language was he wanted to go out on a high.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day, a report came out that said, no, in fact, Daniel Craig hasn't said he'll do it yet. He hasn't made a decision. And then there was an announcement the next day saying, yes, I think it was today. Was it yesterday? It was, yes, he is going to do another Bond film, 1 film. He wants to go out on a high. So it was back to the original language. And all what that was Daniel Craig had apologised. He appeared on a show, and I forget which one it was. I can't remember. Maybe it was with Stephen Colbert. Something with Stephen Colbert. Okay. He said he wanted to apologise to the outlets he spoke to and said he wasn't set on doing Bond. He had to lie to them because he was giving Stephen Colbert, if that is in fact the show that he was on, the exclusive. So he wanted to hold it back until he could speak to him. Now some of this stuff is done to negotiate.
Right.
Like he's done it before himself, Daniel Craig was. I'm not sure I'm coming back. I need some distance from it. And then he came back and did Spectre. Yeah.
I'd sooner I'd sooner open my wrist and do another one at one point, I think he was saying.
Yeah. So some pretty colourful language. And it just means he becomes very unreliable, doesn't he? So if he slips up and says, I'm interested, he can write it off as being, no, I'm not. Because he vacillates wildly one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with this, they're not set on Ewan. That means, they know Ewan's keen because he's been very vocal in the press, and he's even moved positions on it a couple of times saying, I'd love to do it. And then, no, I don't.
I'm bored of hearing about this now.
Yeah, I'm bored of hearing about it. I'm not that hard up for it. It makes it very difficult to negotiate if your employer knows you want the job. They're going to try and get you for peanuts.
Yeah.
So now it might be that they're saying, well, we're not set on Ewan because they want to get around the table and have a fair negotiation, not get around the table and say, we know you want it, so we don't want to pay you anything for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Or him say, I know you want me, so you're going to pay through the nose.
Mm-hmm.
It's some of this stuff's ugly, and I'd rather it didn't creep into the fantasy that I love so much. But I think
but I mean that stuff always does, doesn't it? It's like all the political rhetoric outside of it as stuff as well. It's still Do
you see an Obi-Wan movie working without Ewan at this stage?
It depends on where they do it. If they do, because we've all been assuming Tatooine, but if they were to do something slightly older, like I mean, obviously it's a tricky one to countenance, but between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, maybe.
Yep.
Something like that might work. You know, these are the sort of things where that's a possibility, and that would change the game. And maybe that's what they're kind of trying to, you know.
That's very interesting. So that we would have a young Anakin.
Yeah, exactly. But not Jake Lloyd, because obviously he's got older since then.
Yeah.
But I don't think he'd be up for it. I think he's quite done.
It would be interesting to sort of go midway between the two, because then you can recast Anakin. It doesn't call too much attention to itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be young enough that you can avoid the comic book series of Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Yep. Yes, it'd be a sort of early teen.
That could be interesting. But Anakin. It's very close to the prequels, which I think is a hot potato for an audience.
Yep.
And also it's very close to the Skywalker saga.
Yeah. Now here's the question.
Mm-hmm.
Would people be willing to look past the proximity to the prequels, given how badly they've been clamoring for an Obi-Wan movie? I think they would.
Yeah?
I think so. I think people would be so desperate. I think people are so keen for an Obi-Wan movie that they would take any Obi-Wan movie era.
Yeah,
I do.
It does open up. It opens up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not as much as I was just about to say, because I realised I was existing on too many time planes simultaneously. But it opens up Mace Windu and Yoda.
Yep.
As you know, you've always got Yoda, but you can bring Sam Jackson back in as Mace Windu.
Mm-hmm.
If you recast Anakin. If you recast Obi-Wan, at least you've got the familiarity of Mace to lean on. I was just wondering whether or not you could bring Ahsoka in, but she would be too young, I think.
Yeah, I think you're
right.
right.
Because of her relationship to Anakin later on, I don't think she would be old enough to be a Jedi.
No.
It's a really interesting concept. I don't know if people would buy something so close. And I think it might be, you know, in my mind now, I've got this whole sliding scale where Rogue One was half a step away from Star Wars.
Yep.
Han will be a full step away, and then you can move further away until more stories. If you set something between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, you're taking that half step away from Star Wars, and you're going back again, aren't you?
Yeah.
Which I don't know whether Lucasfilm have any concerns about that, but it is a really interesting concept that it could be set there rather than later in his life.
Yeah. Well, I say at the very least, it would be a way for the studio to say, well, you know, we're not guaranteed that you're going to be the right age for the part. So when they're sort of doing their little negotiating 4D, three-dimensional interstellar chess, they can sort of look at it from that point of view and say, well, you know, don't think you're a guarantee just because you've done it before, because we're going down a different path.
Yeah.
And like I say, I do think, even though people kind of rag on the prequels because it's the fun thing to do, I think even those people, so the ones that are desperate for an Obi-Wan movie, would put up with it. That's why I think.
All right. Well, seeing as you went so wild with your suggestion, I'm going to do one. I'm going to do one as well. What if Tarkin technology was just a test bed for bringing in another actor that isn't Ewan? And
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Yes.
And use Tarkin tech to bring Alec Guinness back to life.
Whew. I don't know how I feel about that, and I know that's weird because obviously Tarkin, you know, was also a thing. But
well, it was certainly divisive, but
sure, it wasn't.
I liked it. It worked for me.
I did too. But I do kind of. For some reason, that one made me go, "Oh no!" But yeah, I don't know.
We're a few years on.
Mm-hmm.
The technology would be presumably slightly more refined, slightly more capable, and a little bit more affordable.
For studios to use, yeah.
But you're moving a character centre stage with that technology you got to get it right.
For sure.
And
there's nowhere you can't do that.
If you make an Obi-Wan movie with Alec Guinness, you could bring in a young Luke and have the Owen stuff.
Yeah.
And explore all of that when Luke isn't much younger than he is.
Yeah.
In A New Hope, even if he and Obi-Wan never actually interact.
Mm-hmm.
You could see plenty of that stuff with Owen talking to young Luke.
Yeah.
And have the friction between Obi-Wan and Owen. But if they're toying with the idea of not using Ewan, which I think is a negotiating tactic, and in fact they will, and I think it would be a mistake not to use Ewan.
I would agree.
Then you could either go back, recast, and tell a young Anakin and Obi-Wan story between the first two prequels, or you can come right up to just moments before A New Hope.
Yeah.
And tell the
Alec Guinness story.
The Alec Guinness.
I don't know if they'd be willing to bank that whole film on that tech, though.
It's a big...
Because you're talking about 2 hours of primary character on screen all the time. It's just going to be uncanny valley, isn't it?
They would have to bring their A game.
Yeah. I think they'd have to do better than that. They'd have to just surpass everything that's ever been done in CG to get it anything close to believable.
Yeah. Because like we've said before, Blue Cat people...
Yeah,
it's easy, isn't it? Because you don't have to
ground them in. You don't have to ground them in reality.
Yeah, and you don't. I don't know what a Navi looks like realistically to know whether or not the representation in that movie is photorealistic.
Yeah, exactly.
But I know what Alec Guinness looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have to really nail it down.
Yeah, if
they were going to do it, I'd applaud them for them trying it.
Sure, I want them to be bold with this stuff. That's how we progress. That's what I mean. The Tarkin stuff was bold. I was really glad they went bold.
Yeah.
For that exact reason, you want the Hollywood types to take risks because they're spending a lot of money on these movies, and you have to wonder if they're not spending it on risks, what are they spending it on? And I mean, obviously, the answer is hookers and cocaine. But
it's the only logical conclusion to
legal
draw.
Disclaimers. I'm not saying that any of them are doing that at all. Of course, I'm being flippant and facetious, and that's at all.
And he never once mentioned Don Simpson.
No, this is true. Oh, I don't even know who that is. So
do you not? Oh, that's a reference that's going to be lost on an awful lot of people then.
Well,
I feel so old. What if they did this is another ridiculous little punt I'm taking here, but what about if they did do you remember that episode of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles where Harrison Ford was in it, playing an old Indy?
Yeah.
Playing a trumpet, and then he told a story that went back into the Young Indy adventure.
Yeah.
What if the Obi-Wan movie opens with Ewan with some CG modifications that makes him closer to Alec Guinness, but maybe 10 years or maybe 5 or 10 years younger than Alec Guinness.
Right.
And then he's maybe talking to somebody about, or maybe he's even communing with Qui-Gon or something. And then it goes right back to when he first turns up on Tatooine and tells the real story. So the cold open would be older Anakin, Ewan.
Obi-Wan.
With, older Obi-Wan with Ewan.
That would be a twist.
Yeah, wouldn't it? With slightly modified face through CGI, but then he sets up the story, and after the opening logo, you go back and you see him. Perhaps even it's the point of view of him leaving on the Eope after he's just dropped Luke off at the homestead. It's him leaving, and it takes off the next day.
He's spending his time haggling for a new apartment.
Yeah. Can I live here? Is it? I think this place might be significant.
I didn't bring any money.
Republic credits are no good here, right? I've heard that somewhere before.
This sucks.
Well, that's an interesting bit of speculation. I'm sure there'll be more tomorrow about this. So by the time this podcast goes out, there'll be a hell of a lot more about this potential Obi-Wan movie. Exciting stuff, because the Hollywood Reporter, when they run something, they're usually pretty sure of the source. Yeah,
for sure. It's interesting they've gone so, for lack of a better expression, balls out.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. All right, let's wrap this up. So thank you very much for listening to Talk Star Wars again this week. Mm-hmm. We apologise that half of us were missing, but hopefully you still got something.
You got the good ones.
You got the good half.
Yeah.
Don't forget, head over to iTunes, leave us a 5-star review and take advantage of the Ron Burgundy guarantee. Whatever you write in a 5-star review will read as long as it's clean. So if you want to promote something like a blog or a podcast, that will be the place to do it. You can also email us your questions and comments to talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com or reach out to us on one of the many social platforms we haunt, such as Twitter, which you heard at the top of the episode, and Facebook and YouTube, Instagram, and loads of other stuff. With that said, Rob, where can people find you between shows?
So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RobWadeVision, and I also have a blog that I run with a few friends, Emotionally14, which you can find on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and iTunes.
Wonderful stuff. You can find Steve on YouTube at Wild About Nature and Stephen_Ware on Twitter. Or if you just look for Wild About Nature on Twitter, you'll find him there. Paul is at moviescorenews.com and you'll find him on Twitter as Moviescore News. You can find everything I do at talkstarwars.co.uk, and I'm also on Twitter at talkstarwars, who has not been verified. There's another story there. Right. We will catch up with you. Stick around for the promo for the Commonwealth. You really need to head over and check out those podcasts because they are first class. Tumbler Saber, Generation X-Wing, Rogue Squadron, the Sky Operas podcast, the Nerd Room, and San Diego Sabres podcast. Is it radio podcast or podcast?
Radio podcast.
Radio podcast. Check them all out at StarWarsCommonwealth.com. And if you download our show notes, you will also see a whole bunch of links. There's links to each of us, links to each of the Commonwealth shows, and a whole bunch of links to Amazon and our t-shirts and hot toys and all sorts of stuff. All right. Have a good week, everybody, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Talk Star Wars is a proud member of the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network. Find us at StarWarsCommonwealth.com alongside
the Tumbling Saber Podcast,
the Generation X-Wing Podcast,
the TSW Roundtable,
the Skyhoppers Podcast,
and the Nerd Room Podcast.
Head to StarWarsCommonwealth.com. Take your first steps to a larger world.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap.